Catalina's absent today.
All right, thank you, Rosie. So we'll go to item 1C, Pledge of Allegiance in Catalina's absence. Leticia, would you lead us? All right, item number 2, approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Seconded.
And Rosie?
Thank you, Kimberly. Thank you, Carmen. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Passes 4-0.
All right, thank you. All right, item 3, communications, 3A, public comments. So we will start with public comments and friendly reminders I read at every meeting. Public comments, for this public comments agenda item for hearings and other agenda items, please remember they are an opportunity to provide a comment to the board. We allow 3 minutes per person and up to 20 minutes in total for all speakers, with the opportunity to extend this time at the discretion of the board president and consent of the board. I'd like to ask members of the public who share the same viewpoint, please select a few individuals to address the board on behalf of that viewpoint so that we can conduct our business in an effective and efficient manner as is in the public's best interest. Typically, the board cannot respond to comments other than referring matters to staff for follow-up, though please also feel free, if we do not do so explicitly, to follow up with Dr. McFetridge directly sometime after the meeting if you would like to share or receive further information. Also, to streamline meetings, we will only accept requests to address the board prior to the agenda time. The 20 minutes in our guidance, so I'm fine with including those if the rest of the board consents to that. So I don't know if we need to. We have, let's see, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So 15 would be 45 minutes. And again, a reminder to folks, if you can stand up together and speak together, that would be appreciated. What do you guys think?
It'll be an hour by the time everyone talks, but I'm okay with it.
You guys fine? Okay. All right, so with that, we'll start with the in-person comments, and then I have 5 of those that I'll read.
Do we not have to vote to go? No?
I think just a kind of informal
Just
consent.
consensus,
Okay.
yeah.
Great. Okay, so with that, we'll bring up first Avis Calhoun. And I will say, yeah, topic not in the agenda for this category. No. You have to press the button.
Right here? Oh, okay. Thank you. Good evening. Thank you, board. I am Avis Calhoun. I'm a 5th grade teacher at El Granada Elementary. Thank you for giving me this time, and I'd like to talk about 3 different things. First, please consider keeping your board comments and updates to 3 minutes per person, also out of a respect for equity and fairness to all meeting participants. Also, for equity's sake, consider making the board meetings also available on Zoom so that you can have a larger participating audience and so that remote participants can make live comments. Secondly, I'd like to talk with you about the relationship between the DO and teachers. Teachers are essential to students' learning. Otherwise, we just throw books at them and say, go ahead, learn, do it on your own. I think that because of the pandemic that we found out how important in-person school was to students in terms of their academic learning and social and emotional development. Also, students in school allow parents to work at their jobs, which means that teachers and schools are essential to a healthy economy. The purpose of the DO, as far as I can tell, is to support student learning. We are a small district, we know that. There must be some sort of metric that can be used to measure what the typical ratio of money spent at the district office is compared to money spent on teachers. Now, I wonder what that typical ratio is, and I wonder why our DO continues to grow in terms of administrative employee numbers and money spent while our teacher population remains stagnant. So I'm wondering what that ratio is for our district compared to other districts, and I'm wondering why administrative positions at the district are growing, whereas teacher numbers are not. The third thing that I'd like to talk about is staffing. Do we have any annual data regarding the numbers and percentages of teachers leaving the district over the past 5 years not due to retirement? Do we know, as a district, how many teaching jobs are filled by long-term subs? If those numbers are trending up, then we're in danger of keeping really good teachers. If those numbers of those people leaving are getting higher, then we have cause to be concerned. We have to ask ourselves, why are teachers leaving the district, and what are we going to do about it? Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Avis. Next, Hannah Brown.
Good evening. My name is Hannah Brown, and I'm the only Spanish teacher at Cunha Intermediate School, and one of the very few teachers in our district with a single subject Spanish credential. Over the past couple of years, the 6th, 7th, and 8th graders in our Spanish immersion program have had to endure frequent teacher turnover. Before I was hired at the start of this school year, many of my students spent the better part of last year studying Spanish with English-speaking long-term substitute teachers. It is well known that turnover rates adversely affect student achievement, and our co-side kids deserve better. Better teacher salaries in Cabrillo Unified will reduce turnover rates and make a big difference for young teachers like me. I care deeply about the students, the families, and the colleagues I've met this year as a new teacher in the district. However, if the board chooses to approve a 0% salary increase, I will be forced to choose between staying here to strengthen Cunha's Spanish program and looking for a job where I can earn a more realistic Bay Area wage. I commute from my one-bedroom condo in San Mateo on the Samtrans bus most days. I know I could make thousands more a year if I were to be hired by any number of our neighboring school districts, unified school districts. I fall under step 2, column A of our salary schedule, earning $58,045 annually. I would make exactly $7,177 more, or 12% more, if I was a teacher in Belmont Redwood Shores School District. And that's just 1 year. What difference could that money make if my husband and I decide to have a baby? Or not live in a one-bedroom condo forever? Please do not force me and other young teachers with decades of potential teaching years and professional growth ahead of us to choose between serving the incredible kids of the COSIDE and seeking work in districts with higher salaries. Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you very much, Hannah. Pat Olson.
Hello. My name is Pat Olson. I teach at Half Moon Bay High School. I think many of you may know that I wear a lot of hats in the school district. I want to be honest here tonight. I feel honestly upset about the district's offer of 0% increase for the teachers. We have a lot of new teachers in the district, younger, and for our second and third year teachers, this is all they know, is us in spring still negotiating our contract and working for back pay, hoping that that will come along the way. That's their only history that they've seen, is that we take a long time to get things done. And here we are in the spring, even though Governor Newsom is, giving out 8.13% COLA to each and every district in the state, none of that is coming to the teachers. The number we're seeing is zero. The inside of a donut, the inside of a bagel, however you want to look at it. It feels really, really unfair. It feels kind of like a kick in the gut, in all honesty. We have teachers living in studio apartments, veteran teachers on our campus that live in studio apartments or share homes with others. In addition to being a teacher, I'm a community member. I'm wedded to this district. My kids came through all the schools in this district at all levels. I confirmed today because I know we're concerned about teacher retention. So when my son went through Half Moon Bay High School, he had 4 different counselors in 4 years because of turnover, teachers leaving for greener pastures, or counselors. My daughter had 3, so she got 1 counselor 2 years in a row. I plead with you to rethink your offer to us of 0%. Please. We're losing teachers every year. As I stated, I'm wedded to this community, but I don't feel like I'm a zero. That number, that zero, just, so, again, figure out a way. We're not asking for the moon. I think a lot of us understand that the salary scales of the districts over the hill are not within our means. But I think more than zero is within our means. So I hope you'll rethink that. And I ask you to think about this as you have your conversations. Are any of you being offered 0% increases in your jobs in the private sector? Are any of you in the 3rd straight year of working good faith on last year's contract, all right, 7-8 months into your next contract? Is that happening to you folks? Think about that. Put yourself in our shoes for just a moment and think about that number 0 that we're seeing as your offer deep into the spring for the 3rd straight year. I am not a zero. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Pat. Next, Marlena Ramirez.
Hello, I'm Marlena. I teach at Hatch, kindergarten teacher. So I've heard that the district does not have money, and however, I have also thought, if that's true, then why has spending on the administration increased for their salaries, for y'all salaries? If we don't have money, then we don't have money. It's not we have money for certain things. Teachers are certainly very, we wouldn't have our program if we didn't have our teachers. So are you saying it's just when it comes to the teachers, that's when the money dries up? And what are you saying when you say that? The 0 to me, for me as well, was a kick in the gut. 0? That's really hard. Just think about that. There. Some money is there. Not 0, something is definitely there. So a raise equals respect. You understand how hard I'm working. I understand how hard you're working to get me that. And just do the right thing is just what I'm saying. So mine was short and sweet.
Thank you, Marlena. And Andrew Hoskins.
Good evening. My name is Andrew Hoskins, and I'm the AP World History teacher at the high school. I've taught here for over 20 years in this district. My daughters graduated here, and my granddaughter goes to Hatch. I'm a quiet person. I normally do not want to get involved in school politics and so forth. And so with the exception of asking for books about 10 years ago, this is really the first time I'm speaking at a meeting, at a school board meeting, and I think that fact might just reveal how far I think things desperately need to be fixed. I'd like to comment on benefits and retention. When I first started in 2002, some of the more experienced teachers always reminded me that we may not get paid as much as schools over the hill, but we have great benefits. Every teacher was hired with full family benefits. It seems that now a starting teacher, or one that was hired after 2011, does not only not have the over-the-hill pay, but they do not even have great benefits to start a family. The two-tier system must end, where some teachers have full family and others don't. I'm told that the district has come into some money by the state. Rumor has it that 0% is slated for teachers. Now, we know that. Fine, but why not also do the right thing and unilaterally decide to appropriate the funds so that all teachers can have full family medical? It is truly a thing that I hear the younger teachers talk about all the time. You all know in your hearts that this is the right thing to do. After all, I hear that everyone in the district office has full family coverage, no matter when they were hired. Is this true? It would be equitable, just, and fair to fix this and end the two-tier system. It can be done. Be our heroes and make this happen. To do anything less would suggest that the school board or the district office does not care to retain young, talented teachers for the education of our youngest community members. This would retain newer and younger talented teachers to stay in the district and not go elsewhere. I have seen so much great talent come and go. English teacher Bryce Hadley, for example, who was starting a family, is a prime example, who said to me that when he left about 10 years ago that he could make over $350,000 more in a lifetime than in this district. That's a temptation that's getting harder and harder for even some older experienced teachers to resist. So either because of our low starting salaries or our weak benefits package, we're losing teachers because they can't start families. We acknowledge that Cabrillo Unified cannot match Palo Alto dollar for dollar, but could we at least have full family coverage back for all of our teachers, old and new, for the sake of our children and grandchildren? In my case, I'm respectfully asking the school board to do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Next, Carrie DiMartini.
Hello, my name is Carrie DiMartini and I teach special ed at Half Moon Bay High School. I want to start off by acknowledging Hannah. I'm super impressed that as an untenured teacher, you got up here and told it how it is, because there are a lot of those at the high school that are too scared or nervous to come up here and say, I don't barely make enough to live and I can't afford to stay here. So thank you. So now on to what I plan to say. I've been in the district since 2006. Over the last 9 years, I've seen a dramatic increase in great teachers leaving. It gets worse every single year. The high school has lost close to 50% to turnover in the last 5 years. When we go to replace them, the choices are slim. So slim that we rarely let teachers go, regardless of their abilities to perform their job duties. As a parent of kids approaching high school age, I chat a lot with their friends' parents about school options. It becomes harder and harder to recommend Half Moon Bay High School to those families. I've said this before, as an alumni, it was my goal to someday teach here. This used to be an amazing school. It still has that potential. Unless the high turnover of great teachers and retention of mediocre teachers ends. As one of the lowest paid districts on the peninsula, we will continue to only be able to hire the lowest qualified, if qualified at all, because we do have many unqualified teachers teaching in our district. The reputation of the school district reflects the reputation of the community. It also affects college admissions. It affects property values. It is what people look at when they look at a town and they're going to move there. They look at school data. The district's received over an 8% COLA. The teachers deserve their 8% or more. It is ridiculous that we have to come here after long days of work to beg and plead for a cost of living increase that the district already received from the state. It's insulting. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, Amy Trainer.
Hello, my name's Amy Trainer, and I've been teaching math at the high school since 2003. I want to speak to you about an issue that has been affecting the education that the students are experiencing here on the coast side. That issue being the low salaries of our teachers. Teachers are essential to building our students' minds and shaping the future. They play a vital role of the lives of our children, and yet our salaries often do not reflect the importance of our work. We are responsible for mentoring and guiding children to become productive members of society. We work tirelessly to provide the children with a quality education, and our hard work should be recognized and rewarded accordingly. Unfortunately, the reality is that many teachers are struggling to make ends meet on the current salaries. We live paycheck to paycheck. We often work in the evenings, weekends, and summers. The rising cost of living, healthcare, and the increased demands on teachers' time and energy is making it clear we need more support. Raising teachers' salary is not just the right thing to do, it's also an investment to the children in this community. When we invest in our teachers, we are investing in the children. By paying teachers a fair wage, we can attract and retain the best educators and ensure that our students receive the highest quality education possible. Moreover, raising teacher salaries can help to address the issues of teacher shortage and quick turnover. Since 2010, I've hired over 30 new math teachers, and half of my current department contains teachers in their first year. With the high school consisting of different teachers every year, it is incredibly difficult to develop a sense of community and connection. Our students are suffering from the anxiety of an unknown teacher every year in math. They are struggling to build a relationship to help support them with letters of recommendation for colleges and jobs. I still have students that graduated in the past that visit and ask for letters for internships, scholarships, and jobs. They often come back just to visit. I have them come back and speak to my classes on the careers and their college experiences. Kim and Sophia, you know firsthand how important my relationship has been with your own children. We need your support by raising salaries so we can attract more people to our schools, ensuring that the children have access to the best possible education and learn how to build lasting mentoring relationships. I can't compete with K through 8 school districts, which offer more money and salary steps for hard to hire such positions as math and SPED. Our Tier 2 teachers no longer have family benefits, which was negotiated during the recession in hopes when the economy recovered, their benefits would be reinstated. Often they choose to start a family and need to move to a district that offers more than ours does. Our teachers are the backbone of the education system, and we deserve to be compensated fairly for our hard work and dedication. By investing in us, you are investing in our children's future. We need your support to make this a desirable place to work. Please help us, respect us, and value our profession. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Next, Heidi Mills.
Good evening, governing board members. My name is Heidi Mills. I teach transitional kindergarten at El Granada Elementary School. As a career primary school teacher, here locally, of course, we talk about how 0 is our hero, right? 0 turns 1 into 10. 0 turns 5 into 50. 2 zeros turn 1 into 100. How cool is that? The kids get so excited. 100 Day is the best day of the entire year. They love it. They're so excited to celebrate 100th Day. But now we're at 126 days of school, and 0 is no longer our hero. It's 0 support. It's 0 COLA. 0 is simply 0 and no longer our hero. How to crush a child's memories. 0 is simply 0, nothing, nada. I spoke at the last board meeting about respect and assumptions of good intentions, of being curious and not judgmental, and above all, kindness was the phrase in a world where you can be anything, just be kind. We need a reset, a chance to be curious and kind and not judgmental. After the meeting last month, we were chastised, excuse me, for leaving after the general comment time. But did you get curious and ask why? Or did you just judge? Personally, I'm the sole caregiver of my parents. My mom had had surgery the day before. I was lucky to get out of there for an hour. My dad has advanced Parkinson's. They need help. I have to leave, okay? So don't judge me for leaving. It's not disrespect. It's priorities, family first. Not to mention, so anyway, it does hurt. So why can't we do better? I'm really trying to be curious. When we know better, we do better, right? Well, guess what? We do know better. So why are we not doing better? And we are limited to 3 minutes, and you are limited by 0. Back to 0, not being our hero. Let's make these board meetings more efficient, effective, and bring the overall time down so more community members can participate. And yes, I agree with Avis, let's put them back online. We had so much better participation when they were online. So again, I'm going to kindly ask you to flip that switch and make it a positive change. Enough with the negativity, enough with the disrespect. Your teachers deserve better. We are the backbone of this district. You are losing highly qualified teachers, experienced teachers, and teachers willing to sacrifice themselves for their students, your students. All because of the disrespect. It doesn't sit right with me. Our community deserves better, and our students definitely deserve better. How do you explain the high rate of turnover to families and community members? I'm curious. Substitute teachers who are not credentialed are not the answer. So I'm going to close with the same way I closed last time. Let's get back to basics and strengthen our foundation, starting with respect for our teachers. Thank you.
Thank you, Heidi. Brianna LaFontaine.
My daughter, Namara, is speaking also, so I'm going to let her go first. No, you don't want me to go first? I want you to go first. Okay, I'm going to go first. My name is Brianna LaFontaine. I am a parent in the district. I separately but equally agree to the meeting, the way the meetings go. I threw out my notes for right now, and I don't do public speaking without notes very well, but I was trying to stay within the minutes based on the comments. As a involved parent who is trying to be a good representative for my school and attend all the meetings, it is very hard to hear that public comment is limited to an X amount of time. Last month, it was, oh, can we let 8 teachers speak for a total of 24 minutes? But then 6 of you took 44 minutes giving your comments. And it's not that what you're saying is not important, but if I'm asking parents and community members to come to this meeting, I have a hard time saying, just, you know, the meeting, the meat of it isn't gonna start for like an hour and a half. It's not what we're saying isn't important. It isn't what you're saying is important. You all are making very important, big decisions for this district, but many of us don't have the ability to stay here till 10 o'clock at night, even once a month. Next Wednesday, I have 4 district-involved meetings. I'm a parent. Like, I'm an involved parent, but we have a lot going on, and sitting here when there are things I want you to vote on and I want to know how you're doing it, I want to know what you're saying, I would rather get to that first. If an email by you to the district would help, like, tell us what's going on with you. I'm trying to think of solutions where you're also heard, but we can get through these meetings a little faster so that we can suggest more people to come. I also wanted to make a comment on teacher salaries because it's part of my mind. I quickly, because I have 0 minutes right now in life, found in the 23-24 Governor's Education Budget Review, it's a printout of it, says the cost of living adjustment is 8.13%, the highest in recent memory. That is a quote from Tony Thurmond on this budget. It also says 23 and 24 continues to improve investments in education for schools, students, and teachers. That is what the budget says, and I hope that our district will follow. I did not ask her to speak. I did not tell her what to say. She was here for the last meeting and felt that she needed to say something. You ready? It's okay. I know what you're saying. I know. I love you. But we can't. Okay. It's okay. Are you sure? Do you want me to read it for you? Okay. We got the jitters right now, so I'm just going to go. She literally wrote this. Hi, my name is Namera, and I am in 2nd grade. I believe that the teachers should get a raise. I know you might think I am young, but I go to El Granada. They teach me and my friends a lot. Also, the other teachers that teach my friends that don't go to El Granada, I know that they are great teachers too. I say, give them a raise. What do you all say? Please do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Brianna and Amira. All right, so, okay. We'll take Ann Reichenbusch, and that's the last of our spoken comments, and then I'll read the one submitted in advance online.
Hi, I think everybody knows me. I'm Ann Reichenbusch. I've been in the district for 30 years, at least. Yes. I'm not much of a numbers person, but I thought I would look up some numbers just to kind of make my point. I'm very concerned about life on the coast, particularly for those people, those new teachers who come and bring us fresh air, new ideas, research-based instruction, and how hard things have become for them in terms of finding a place to live and earning a living. So the numbers I came up with from the 2000 census, the average price of a home in 2000 was $119,600. That was the average price of a home in the year 2000. The average of price home now is $1.35 million, and that is a 1,034% increase. That's a 10% increase. I mean, that's more, whatever, it's a lot, it's a big increase. And then I looked at the salaries, and the average teacher salary, this is the average, in the year 2000 was $46,006. This is just notes, I'm sorry, I didn't have time to just write this out. $46,672, and that was in the year 2000. And I don't have it for this year. I should though. But the numbers, when I did the math, added up to 76% increase. And I thought, how is it possible that it goes from 76 to 1,034%? I mean, that is the increase in teacher salary is just a tiny fraction of what the increase of the cost of living has become on the coast. And that's not counting the cost of living related to COVID, all the increased cost of food and utilities. And I couldn't get the numbers for rents. Then also information that you're probably hearing tonight is that the state has given $8.13 million to each district, and we get nothing, zero for teachers, zero has been offered to teachers. There's just something really, really, really wrong with that. Anyway, I thank you for listening, and I hope that you can think in a humane way about what the situation is like for teachers, particularly beginning teachers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ann. Okay, so with that, we'll go to the submitted comments. So first from Karen Hoffman, Real Life Learning, Half Moon Bay High School. I'm sorry, these are pertaining to later agenda items. To our,
We read those now,
oh,
Sophia,
because they're
because those are
consent.
for
Okay,
consent.
okay. Thank you, Rosa, for clarifying. So yes, item 4B, adoption of proclamation recognizing April of 2023 as California Friday Night Live Month, which is an item under consent, which we presumably will not be discussing, as we usually don't. That's why we call it consent. Okay, from Karen Huffman, for over 10 years, the Friday Night Live program has been engaging Half Moon Bay High School students who are committed to addressing underage substance abuse. Through this hands-on leadership development program, Half Moon Bay High School students receive valuable career development and life skills training in areas such as resume writing, public speaking, and team building. Students meet weekly with the FNL staff member who helps them identify issues in our community, conduct research, and implement media and policy campaigns. Through real-life learning, service reflection questions, and Half Moon Bay High School freshman commented, Friday Night Live helped me get out of my comfort zone, work with other people, improve my social skills, and grow my public speaking skills. Another freshman said, it made me feel inspired. A junior remarked, I learned about the roots and branches of underage drinking. It influenced me to find a career in the future that will let me impact society in a good way. As program manager of Half Moon Bay High School's Real Life Learning Program, I work with over 50 community partners who provide our students with experiential learning opportunities. Friday Night Live is truly one of the most impactful. The Friday Night Live program doesn't just deter students from substance abuse, but builds confidence, leverages personal growth, teaches professional skills, and helps to shape powerful youth advocates who create lasting change in their communities. I support recognizing April of 2023 as California Friday Night Live Month. Okay, so next, Angel Delgado with Cunha Club Live regarding 4B, Friday Night Live Proclamation, Youth Support. Hello, school board members. Thank you for taking the time to read, hear, or listen to my public comment. My name is Angel, and I am a student at Cunha Middle School and a member of the Cunha Club Live Youth Group. I believe it's important for young folks like myself to feel safe in my community. I believe we would feel safer if we were to bring the community together, because if another tragedy happens, like the mass shooting here, we will all be divided. I believe that there should be more after-school programs so that kids can get distracted from bad things such as alcohol, drugs, etc. I think that programs will be able to help many people that are in gangs or using drugs. I believe drugs are very bad because we are still kids with many years ahead of us, and we're killing each other with some chemicals that make us feel, quotation good, quote, end quotes, for a while. We want to thank you for taking the time to hear our Friday Night Live proclamation that was submitted and making strides to creating a safe space for young people. Okay, and next comment, same item. Ruby Salazar, Youth Leadership Institute, San Mateo Friday Night Live County Coordinator. Good afternoon, my name is Ruby Salazar, and I am the facilitator of the Friday Night Live Coastside Youth Council at Half Moon Bay High School. I'm here today to share the importance of the Friday Night Live proclamation to proclaim April as Friday Night Live Month. Youth across California work on alcohol prevention and other drugs projects, and today we have Friday Night Live youth leaders here to share what Friday Night Live has done for them. Friday Night Live programs also help reduce alcohol, tobacco, and other drug risks for youth, with 97% of youth reporting that they learned about problems that alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs can cause. And Friday Night Live helps them to decide to do things instead of alcohol, tobacco, or other drugs. 96% of youth report that because of Friday Night Live, they support other youth to make healthy choices. Friday Night Live programs also support youth in increasing their involvement and attendance in school, with 87% of youth sharing this in their yearly youth development survey for the program. Friday Night Live youth in our chapters work toward making their communities better, and this year youth are doing this by uplifting healthy alternatives to drinking alcohol and sharing why their peers are not drinking alcohol. Youth will also work on creating posters to spread across their school community to uplift the healthy alternatives, and also will work on a public service announcement, further uplifting their message that youth don't need alcohol to have fun. Join us in celebrating Friday Night Live Youth by adopting this proclamation to proclaim April Friday Night Live Month. Thank you for your time. Okay, and I'm seeing now that we have 2 public comments not pertaining to items in the agenda, so I'll read those now as well. Nicole Robinson, teacher at El Granada Elementary School. As a member of CUTA, I support our union and its reps as they work through negotiations for better pay and working conditions on behalf of all teachers in the district. Please respect us as professionals. Please work with us to negotiate a raise, especially given that the COLA is 8%. Please do not take away a teacher workday in lieu of another district-led professional development. We have district and site-led professional development every month already. Please respect teachers' need for time to collaborate and plan quality instruction for our students. We value our current schedules, which allow for one early student release day per week in order to collaborate on instruction. Okay, and finally, Annette Angeles Haggerty, El Granada Elementary TK teacher. Please work with our bargaining members of our union, whom I fully support. The district received an 8% COLA. Please spend that on the teacher hour CSEA members. We want to successfully retain teachers and staff. Why is spending on admin increasing while it is decreasing for teachers? Okay, and with that, we are done with public comments. And so, just as a reminder, we do invite people to stay. It's with the acknowledgement that as we are all very busy, we recognize and respect that people here are all very busy. Fully respect if you have responsibilities and you want to go home. Totally get that. Respect that completely. If you are curious and want to stay, that's great. If you are curious and you can't stay, you can watch it on YouTube afterwards at like whatever speed you want, 1.5. If you're like my kids, you watch things on 2.0, and I don't know how to do that, but I can't. You can rewind, play things, so that's an option as well if you need something for your bus ride or car ride or whatever. So with that, we will move to our next topic, 3B, Employee Organizations Report, and we will start with CUTA.
Superintendent McFetridge, President Lane, District Management, and board members. My name is Sean Reardon, and along with Claudia Lundstrath, we are co-presidents of the Cabrillo Unified Teachers Association. For many years, I've addressed the CUSD board and district management with the belief that my carefully chosen words could influence, persuade, convince, or even inspire decision makers to consider things from an educator's perspective. Sadly, I no longer believe that that is the case, especially when the subject of teacher compensation is the topic at hand. So I will choose to address the members of the COSIDE community with this urgent message. COSIDE community, parents, students, residents, fellow teachers. The Cabrillo Unified School District Board and district management is not providing the best education possible for the students of Cabrillo Unified. There are two major factors in the shortcomings of this decision-making body. Firstly, the budgeting priorities of this district values management and administrative positions over teachers. In a time of teacher shortages, our district has chosen to create many new administrative positions, and the choice has been made to offer teachers and counselors no raise in the current bargaining cycle. Cabrillo Unified School District has received more money than ever before, including the 8.13 COLA increase. None of this funding will be brought to the bargaining table for a raise for the individuals who work with your children every day. Teacher turnover is a crisis at Half Moon Bay High School, and while CUTA understands the Cabrillo Unified School District can never compensate its teachers like a high school district, the reality is that we do compete with those high school districts for our highly trained and experienced teachers. This simple fact can be seen in the number of teachers that leave the district for better paying positions over the hill. Is it sensible for a school district that cannot retain educators due to its subpar compensation package to prioritize management position over the people who have direct instructional positions with your students? Of course not. This district should be striving to increase compensation in an attempt to retain our best educators. Instead, the district blames teachers for the hard-fought raise we've had in our last bargaining session. A bargain that the superintendent, quote unquote, endorsed wholeheartedly at the conclusion of our mediation. The second issue facing CUTA is the increasing difficulty in working at Cabrillo Unified School District. A good example of this is the increased mistrust of teachers to effectively use their preparation time. In the current bargaining session, where the teachers have been offered nothing, the district has asked teachers to give up a teacher workday for an additional professional development day. Essentially, teachers would have 1 day before the start of school year to prepare their classrooms, their presentation, make copies, and develop curriculum. Clearly an impossible task in 8 hours. Professional development at Cabrillo Unified School District is subpar at best and is usually an entire waste of time. And yet the district thinks another day of PD will close the achievement gap and address learning loss? Well-prepared teachers and carefully crafted lessons are what will address learning loss. In closing, I am certain that we are headed toward mediation and fact-finding, and I look forward to sharing the budgetary priorities with the mediator for the third time in as many years. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sean. And next is Employee Organizations Report, CSEA representatives.
Good evening, Board. I'm pleased to announce that CSEA has approved the calendar for the 23-24 school year. CSEA has been at the negotiating table with the district on language, and we will be meeting with them in 2 weeks again about language. We have not discussed salaries, so I cannot speak on behalf of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. Excuse me, thank you, Diane. All right, next 3C, board members report. Volunteers to go first? Or I could just call randomly. All right, I'm gonna choose Kim.
Thanks, Sophia. Yes, and first, thank you to all of the teachers who have shared all of your important points. They truly are helpful for us to hear. And I personally ask for a yes and space, knowing that I truly believe that sitting on the board here are people with noble intent, and that we understand the angst over salaries, and we are looking at a number of things across the district. So the question about 3 minutes in speaking, my heart's racing. I frequently find frustration and think that, oh man, we're saying too much and it's long-winded, and so I agree with that sense of timing. I do ask the yes and to understand that I can speak with 100 of you if you choose to come talk to me, but I can only speak on any topic to one person. So if I speak to Lizette on the topic of music during the month, I can't turn around during my private time and talk to Sophia or Carmen or Mary Beth. So I have constraints on me, but I can talk to any of you. So it's, as we go from meeting to meeting, realize that all of the board members truly do have constraints about what we can say to each other. And so during the agendized items, especially in section 5, when we're talking on topics and presentations, that's our chance for asking questions, and that's our chance to hear what other boards feel and what their opinions are, and what their point of view is, so we can start to understand what the more comprehensive conversation is. So I just want to say thank you in advance for your patience on that. We had a wonderful closed session last month regarding workforce housing, so I'm really looking forward to seeing how that piece of the puzzle fits in our community as that starts to roll out communications in the next few months. And I look forward to visiting Half Moon Bay High School tomorrow. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Kim. which is Carmen. Wow, and you got the wind to welcome them.
I just wanted to agree with Kimberly's comments about thanking everybody coming to speak with us, and thank you so much for sharing your time and, coming here and showing that you care. I am also a teacher in San Francisco Unified, and so I really I feel this so deeply with the salaries and the retention. And just to say, we are seeing the same thing in San Francisco Unified. Same high levels of turnover, same salaries that are really struggling to keep up with things, the cost of living and and inflation and all that. So I feel that we are doing our very, very best to make working here livable. So just know that's where my heart is. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Carmen. Mary Beth?
Today, I thought I would talk a little bit about a conversation I had with one of our high schoolers last week, I guess it was, because it kind of impacted me and I've been thinking about it. But I was talking with her and she was giving me a real sense of hopelessness. Things are bad, don't look to our generation to help. We're all the negative humanity's in trouble. And I thought about it and I said, well, things are a lot better now many things now are better than they were in the past. And I started talking about things and thinking about like how knowledge can make you look differently at things. So I started talking about how things like physics, you get astrophysics stuff. Like I get in a spaceship and I go really, really fast and I fly away and I come back and I will have aged less than Letitia, than everyone here. Like space, time actually slows down if you're looking at it. If you're, it's real, this really happens. In satellites moving at 20,000 miles an hour, time moves slower on those satellites when we're observing them. I mean, this is real stuff. They have to do a calculation when we use our GPS on our phones because the time is moving differently in a satellite. And they do a calculation so that our GPS will work and show us where we are on our phones. If they didn't do that, it wouldn't work right. So I was like, this is so cool. There's so many cool things about education. My daughter's rolling her eyes because she's heard it all before. But I saw a bumper sticker on someone's car and it said, science. It's like magic, but it's real. And I mean, it's true. Most people don't know that as you go faster, time changes. A photon moving at the speed of light doesn't experience time. I mean, that's crazy to me. And as things go faster through space, their mass becomes infinite. It's crazy. So I started thinking, if I slow down a little bit, will my mass keep... So I don't know, I just started talking about, and it's so interesting, and I really think that we need to make sure that our kids can understand the magic of science. It's like magic science, it's like magic, but it's real. E equals mc squared. Mass is changing, speed has to change. They talk about now how we're not held down by gravity, but we're actually being pushed down by the fabric of space-time, how it's all interwoven. Time changes, mass has to change. And it's cool, and it's cool to talk about gravity. It can help to lighten the room, lighten the mood. You guys are a tough crowd. But I just started thinking about that and talking to her and thinking how hopeless she felt and thinking how cool science is. I mean, I studied neurobiology, but now I'm like, I should have been an astrophysicist, I've learned a lot about policy and law in my day job. I would love to study law. I would love to I need to be a vampire so I can live 400 years, so I have time for all these other careers. Like, I'm on my third career now, but it's so interesting. And for me, it's been social media. Like, I love, that was my COVID thing when I had more time, was watching astrophysicists on social media. So cool. But I really think it's important that all of us understand, the fun of it, because that's what we need to be imparting to students, because these are the kids that need to figure out what dark matter is, that need to figure out things that could be either, humanity making it or not. So I think that we need to be thinking about not just having regular average kids go through our education system and every other education system. I mean, a lot of the problems we're talking about all the time, they're a problem here, but they're a problem all across our country. And I think we really need to be thinking about not being just average, but being exceptional. And when I think about these big things that are happening, space-time and fusion and the sun and all these little problems seem silly, because really we need people that understand this. Like, we have a nuclear thing, the sun, running our world. We need to understand this, and it could mean the difference between humanity making it or not. And so I really feel like we need to impart that. And it's everyone here, it's everyone helping our kids. It's all of us to get that excitement going, because I really felt this sense of hopelessness, and I think maybe it's part of coming out of COVID, but it's really sad to see. And, I really think that whatever it is that you find interesting, but understanding those complexities helps you to understand the bigger picture of what's going on. Neil deGrasse Tyson, most people know him. I mean, he's a great guy. Michelle Thaler, she works at NASA. She's an astrophysicist as well, and they're really good at putting the story together. But there's so much good information out there, and I just was thinking about it, and I wanted to impart how important I think everyone's job is here, and how, maybe I'm not the one that's discovering what dark matter is and how this affects, us, or, parallel universes, but I am trying to make a difference by helping support kids that can grow up to understand this and really make a difference in our society in a big way, because these are big concepts. And for me to be understanding at age 52, like, that time on a satellite moves differently, I mean, that's amazing. Like, I didn't know that. And I think we really need to get that excitement in kids, because I'm not seeing it. And I said to this girl, I'm like, you can't be like that. You got to be the one there for us. You got to pick up our world and make sure, we survive as a species. So that's the point, I guess, just to make sure that we know how important everyone is here, and that what we're doing is a big deal, and it does make a difference in kids' lives, and keep doing it and keep being excited. So that's what I have today.
Thank you, Mary Beth. Lizette, we'll go to you, and I'll go last. Thank you. Thank you, Kim. I'm going to first speak in Spanish. Buenas noches a todos que nos están viendo, ya que no ha venido nadie, pero igual siempre se les da la invitación para que vengan. Está aquí siempre Josefina más que dispuesta y con mucho gusto de traducir. Siempre va a haber alguien para que traduzcan. Si vieron el video, desafortunadamente otra vez llegué un poco tarde y quiero pedir disculpas. Siempre se me hace un poco tarde, especialmente ya que han cerrado la carretera y todas las condiciones en el clima, más aparte el tráfico, es un poco difícil. Y también, como muchas de las personas que estamos aquí tenemos familias, no es fácil nada más ir y venir a las juntas. Tengo que también ver quién me va a cuidar a mi niña en la casa. Les pido disculpas. Conmigo lo único que puedo decir es,
he estado muy enferma, so no he estado muy al tanto de todo lo que está pasando desde la última junta, pero como siempre tengo ganas y gusto de seguir adelante. También hay otras cosas personales que también me estoy pasando, pero aquí estamos tratando de echarle ganas y seguir adelante. Y también quiero darle las gracias a todos los maestros que estuvieron aquí abogando por un salario justo. Y nada más decirles que gracias por venir y que los escuchamos. Realmente no tengo mucho que decir, pero no voy a decir lo primero que se me viene a la mente y al corazón. Hoy escuché de un alumno en nuestro distrito que desafortunadamente, por una razón que no entiendo, ha estado ausente de la escuela más de 300 días de este año escolar. Su porcentaje es 0.0 y no entiendo por qué nadie realmente ha estado abogando por este niño. A veces se me hace difícil escuchar otras cosas cuando sigo como estamos repitiendo la misma historia. Los que no están aquí, los papás, los niños que no están aquí, esos son los que deberíamos de estar abogando. Todos vimos los números, todos vimos la presentación que nos dio la doctora Bhatia en cuestión de cómo estamos haciendo en la escuela. Y no es sorpresivo que la mayoría que son latinos son los que más están en el área donde no están haciendo bien. Eso es algo que me frustra porque pienso que estamos dando 10 pies para adelante y luego 50 para atrás. Pero como siempre, muchas gracias. Si nos escuchan, por favor, participen, por favor, háganse escuchar. Estamos aquí para trabajar juntos, para mejorar nuestros estudiantes, nuestras escuelas y sobre todo nuestra comunidad. Now I'm going to speak in English, and I just want to say thank you. I first want to apologize for being late. I don't really have an excuse, but I will tell you, it's just the roads are really horrible, especially with the weather and the fact that, it's still one lane and I'm coming from over the hill. As many of you here, I also have childcare issues that I also need to tend to before I rush over here. But am going to try my best, and I do apologize if it offends anyone. I don't want anybody to think that I'm irresponsible or I'm not taking this serious. Believe me, I do take this very serious. I also want to thank the teachers for being here and for advocating for a fair salary. And I just want to let you guys know that I hear you. So thank you for taking your time and for being here. There's really not much I've been doing. I was actually very sick, so I haven't been involved as much. And just family, just personal stuff. Like everyone said, housing. I'm having a housing issue. I'm really struggling. I'm really struggling financially as well. And then the area where I'm living is Oak Avenue, so we have a really high probability of flooding again. So those are the fun things that we deal with, especially in that neighborhood and with the people in my community. One of the things, I didn't have much to share. I see Mr. Santoni here, and I'm going to get right on top of the environmental committee, and I just thank you for all the work that you did. And I did tell Mr. Boysen that he forgot to add you into his presentation last month, and that's not cool. He had a picture of your cool area you guys had with the students, and I just want to say thank you. Like, you've been doing such a great job, and those kids have really taken it upon themselves to do all the work, and it's just amazing how you could see how kids could be leaders and take upon such important work when they have the right teacher and mentor. So thank you for everything that you do. Thank you very much. And the other thing I did want to talk about that came to my attention today, which was very upsetting to me is somebody close in my community brought up the fact that there is a student in the high school that was only reached out once. He has more than 200 absences. I don't know if it's at the high school. He is in our school district. Let me take that back. And I can't imagine why, if we're talking about equity, we haven't reached out. I don't know why teachers haven't. I don't know why anyone hasn't reached out to this family. The mom was in one meeting only and came out with the understanding that it was her job to find an alternative school for her son, which is completely unacceptable. Of course, Spanish was a barrier. Language was a barrier. And there's other barriers, but going back to equity and going back to, it really bothered me, especially when there's a teacher up here who also, it's fair to say she did acknowledge the truth about there are teachers who are not doing their jobs and not performing their duties. And that's so heartening and it's so sad because just like the presentation that Dr. Bhatia presented last month, unpredictably, the Latino population is the one that's suffering the most, yet the Latino population is the one that represents more than half of the population. And it's once again one of those things that it's like, here we go talking about it again, what are we not doing? And I think we talk about how we're a community and we talk about how we want to work together. I think, we all need to work together to help these kids who are not seen, not heard, and not spoken about, and really do the right thing, when it comes to them. And I don't know, I'm not telling anybody to, do someone else's job, but I don't know. If you know that they're, I just hope that some of the energy that is used could also be used to support each other and uplift each other. And maybe these teachers, I don't know who they are, but, if they're out there hearing me, reach out because it's not fair to our kids. It's not fair to my community, the Latino community, to continue to just go through this over and over again. And that's what I have to say.
Thank you very much, Lizette. And thank you, I want to start just by saying thank you to all the speakers. And as Lizette said, we do hear you. And if I can't see you because I can't see with my glasses on, close. But we do hear you and appreciate you either being here, submitting comments in advance, reaching out to us to speak one-on-one. Thank you, Kim, for explaining. Also, think what sometimes we take for granted, that this is our only time to hear one another speak on most topics, unless we're kind of like huddled up in pairs on topics that are board business, which we can't do. So that's really a pretty big constraint. So I love hearing Mary Beth's. People might think it's a lot, right? The dark matter thing, but I love hearing your excitement about dark matter and science and that love of learning and that feeling of hopelessness, and how if we work together, we can take care of that. There's a lot to be said for that spirit of learning. I love Carmen's doodles and watching her do these, the art teacher over here with her really the coolest doodles I've ever seen. She could probably show you, I'm sure, sometime. And Lizette, just speaking your truth and taking the time to do so in Spanish, in your native tongue, and to your community as well as is hopefully listening to, and to just hear your personal experiences, I think means a lot. And I think as one member out of 5 representing more than half of our students from a personal perspective, much as the rest of us do try to be the best allies we can, that's worth its weight in gold every minute that you share that with us. So I want to thank you for rushing to get here, battling the rain, the childcare, the housing, all that stuff. And we all, of course, have our things that we may or may not speak about in public, but much as many in the public do as well. So I just want to thank everybody for all of that. Very different note. I passed by that, what I like to call that shabby little house by the district office pretty often as I am in the neighborhood. And it's really cool to see that coming down and to being deconstructed. The little house, Sean's looking at me like, the one by the the district office. It's really cool to see that and the arrangements that were made to have no cost to us to have that come down and be upcycled as lumber to have a different life. Because I passed by it, I think of that as my metaphor for so many different things that we're trying to do as a school district. I think the times have changed so much since most of us were students in our own students' shoes. The world is like very different. And so I think of us also as kind of doing that, like kind of take this lumber, this one we don't need anymore. This one we do, but maybe it needs to be hanging a little bit higher and we need something else to hold it up. So I think about that a lot. And I think about how, what potential we have to do, if we can evolve, if we can change, how much more we can do for our students and quite honestly for all the grownups in our community as well. So this was for me a busy month. I was fortunate to have good health, so I took advantage of it. Much as Brianna mentioned earlier about running around, I kind of feel like I live that life as well. This month, again, through my role in the San Mateo County School Boards Association, I was really honored to bring to our school board members across the county a live presentation on how to have some difficult conversations about implicit bias. And for those that are less, we might all have different perspectives on what that means, but it's basically a kind of bias that we may not be conscious of, so what some people call unconscious bias. And it's important to identify that in ourselves and to have conversations about that, not pointing at each other like you're biased, I'm not, but you are, right? Like that's not very productive. But we had some really good conversations about how we have to have those conversations as a foundation to achieving the equity goals that we have that Lizette, you referred to earlier. It was also really fun to participate in a Zoom call, bringing together really amazing educators, labor and industry partners working on career technical education and other related high interest, high wage and high demand career learning pathways for students across San Mateo County. Again, that's kind of what our hope is for our students. They come out of our schools and we do have a huge privilege of having a unified school district where we can have them from pre-K to even adult school in some cases. So that's a really exciting opportunity that we have there. It was really fun to join CEF's annual donor appreciation event, and we heard from our CTE coordinator at Half Moon Bay High School on the power of innovation in schools. Sometimes that's hard to do, but kind of a gratitude for the partnership that allows that to happen, and I think a really great role model. It was really fun to, I feel increasingly in my role, this is my second term now, being involved on public education, advocating both at the county level and as a delegate at the California School Boards Association, spending time in Sacramento on legislative advocacy there. It's really impossible in 2023 to separate education policy from housing policy in California. And I think that those are the real conversations that we're starting to have, even more so now after the tragedy of January 23rd, where what was there became revealed in terms of the really horrific living conditions of our farm workers and other essential workers on the coast side. I think these two conversations are increasingly merging, and I'm really thrilled that we'll have an agenda item later this evening pertaining to our next steps around workforce housing. So again, if folks can't stay, I hope that they can catch that later on. Or reach out to Dr. Sue McFetridge or any board member anytime. But that's exciting. At the Mavericks Foundation, some of you might be familiar with, holds this Brews and Views events periodically, and so I was grateful to be included in the one as a audience member for the affordable housing one a few weeks ago, and really heartening to hear a number of times the idea of educator workforce housing came up, not from me. But I did express gratitude that people recognize that because of the threefold differences in per pupil funding in our county alone, so our district being in the lowest quartile commensurate to the average salary schedules, was recognized as a clear need for kind of merging these two issues of public education and housing. So that was really cool. And being in Silicon Valley, there's a new startup called Civic Bell. Some of you might have heard of them. They sent postcards to everybody. I was approached to participate on that too, so I'm there as an elected official. It's a great new platform for people to be able to connect with their elected officials across all government agencies, be it, we have like 1,000 on the coast alone, depending on where you live, but city council, Mid-Coast Community Council, school board, but also Mark Berman's there as a assembly member from the state. So more people are coming on board slowly. So that's pretty exciting to be part of that kind of innovative way to have productive conversations between these government agencies and our community members. So I caught Mr. Reardon before coming up here and expressed my dismay for not being able to make it to the arts opening at the gallery last Saturday, as I have for the past few years. It's one of my favorite things because I'm a kind of a nerd for art. But I will catch that at the Coastal Arts League this month. So I'd encourage others too, if they're interested and available. Carmen, you probably would love it. Maybe, you can Google it. It's a great show. It's like really, really cool. I love it every time. So yeah, with that exciting stuff coming up with the boys basketball team from Half Moon Bay going to Sacramento on Saturday, robotics club, I'll put a plug in, going to San Francisco for their competition next week, like really cool, interesting stuff going on. And with that, as Lizette said, it's, kind of sometimes feels like we're plugging holes, trying to keep the ship together, but we kind of, I think actually, Jesus often refers to kind of building the plane as we fly it. And I think that's constantly what we're trying to do, is to kind of juggle what we have, where we want to go. And we have, we are increasingly having some more long-term planning to be able to get there. So I'm really excited for all the items on the agenda tonight. I think it's going to be a good one. So thank you very much. All right, so with that, we'll move to student board member report. Catalina is not here tonight. I assume we do not have a proxy to speak for her. So we will move to the superintendent report.
I just want to, first of all, echo what you said about congratulating the basketball team, the Half Moon Bay High School basketball team, who had a successful win the other night against Chico, and who are going to Sacramento to play Valencia High School. And I hear this is a historic first for Half Moon Bay High School, so kudos to the coaches and the players and their families. And I was just emailing back and forth with someone about logistics for bus to Sacramento, so hopefully we'll get them there, and good luck on that game day. I do want to go through the consent agenda, just so the public understands what the board will be voting on in the consent agenda. We do have our annual proclamation recognizing April as National Autism Acceptance and Inclusion Month, and in recent years we've had a parent who has talked about how this can't be just about acceptance, but has to be about inclusion. And so we give that proclamation to the board under consent, as we do with most, to try to keep these meetings shorter, to talk about neurodiversity and our need to do more than just accept, but to include and to embrace those students. You heard some comments tonight from Friday Night Live supporters, including from Ruby Salazar, who's done such a great job of supporting that. And they were concerned about having students come here tonight for that because of the prediction of heavy rains. And so I encourage them to also invite the board members and to me to an event, for a Friday Night Live event. And I thank them for what they do to try to keep kids safe every week. There is a approval for the Future Farmers of America field trip to Ontario next week. I'm actually going on request of an ag science teacher, Hanalani Hansen. And so I think it's great that I'll get to know more about Future Farmers of America, and I appreciate the work they are doing. The robotics team got mentioned. I will say that hats off to Mr. Reardon for being an advisor for that group, and to Ms. Alexander for also working with that group, as I understand it. And this is the second year, and I think it's fantastic to have that applied learning. Now we know why you're so science crazy, Mary Beth, because your kids and your husband and you are actually science crazy, and I love that. I think it's very important for us to invest in science. Speaking of Mr. Santoni, he and I were just meeting yesterday or the day before to talk about this very thing and about the work of the Environmental Committee and the work we've been doing in that regard. There will also be a J13A. We did have to cancel school during the last heavy storm in January. That approval is to request allowance for that state emergency that Gavin Newsom called, that allows us to get recouped for that, not snow day, but rain day. There's an approval of summer school 2023 services as Dr. Bhatia and her team, Mr. Robles and Ms. Silvera and Mr. Castillo are trying to plan out summer school and braid all those funds for students to have ongoing learning and to avoid the summer slide. There is an approval of a 3-year Department of Rehabilitation agreement. If anybody doesn't know, the Department of Rehabilitation does work with us on work opportunities for students at the high school, and also ongoing services through those students' lives once they are identified by the DOR. It's really useful for students with learning differences. I am delighted tonight to have on the consent agenda the student-teacher calendar, and I look forward to us continuing to try to fold in parent voice and teacher voice and classified staff voice and management voice. And we have suggested that to both unions that we would like to actually codify the calendar process so that we could get everyone's voice together and unite everyone in that process so that it could be family friendly. There were concerns in the past about the school year getting out too early, and elementary representatives, PTO representatives, I won't call them out, but had approached us saying, hey, it's really tough getting it out that early in June. So we made a compromise. We talked to the high school folks about this. There's always some people displeased in a compromise, but it has passed in both CUTA and CSEA votes. Of course, we highly recommend it to the board for their approval tonight, and we think we look forward to hopefully a process where we can deliver more calendars in a more timely way, as knowing that our families and our staff depend on that. There are the certificated reports, personnel reports, the classified personnel reports. There's an approval of a new teacher exchange agreement with California Department of Education and the consulates for Spain and Mexico as we continue to try to seek out Hispanohablante, Spanish-speaking staff. There's donations, the warrant register. There is an approval of a blinds estimate. This has been a long time coming, could not get contractors for blinds for Half Moon Bay High School, but we have been working on that. I appreciate the patience of staff and the work of the Half Moon Bay High School administrators, including Mr. David Jones, working with Mr. Contreras and others to try and finally get this taken care of. And then there's an approval of a community hub agreement. And I think I see our partners, Corinne Bucher and Jill Jacobson from Cabrillo Education Foundation and the Boys and Girls Club of the Coast Side, and we met yesterday also to talk about the community hub agreement, and it takes a while to get these things right, but I'm glad that we all have a kind of consensus on this and can bring this to the board. Of course, we presented this to you last April, and we look forward to our partners, including Alas and Pat Carbullido, who I don't think can be here tonight, but met with us yesterday. Ayudando Latinos a Soñar, Alas, Boys and Girls Club of the Coast Side, Cabrillo Education Foundation, and their leaders all partnering with us to try to open the community hub for services to students and their families. And I guess I can say too, with congratulations to Dr. Bhatia and Mr. Castillo in the district offices, that they applied this year for a community school grant and received it. And so I thank our partners for working with Dr. Bhatia on that. And I think that's a couple $100,000 over time to help with that effort. And I just want to say, look, we're always in the business of trying to balance budgets, but to balance interests. And this is one way that I think we can say that we are balancing the interests, because we're getting money from the state, we're getting the resources and the services from our partners at no cost. And years ago, I think it was 3 years ago, I recommended to this board that they buy those portables for this dream. It was a dream that was championed by Corinne and by Jill. Thank you to our partners for doing that. I look forward to this agreement finally being finalized tonight. And then we have the governing board policy updates as recommended by California School Boards Association, and the approval of the minutes. In the conversation for the general public later tonight will be a Hatch Elementary School presentation talking about the glows and grows, the good things and the bad, and what we want to improve there. There will be the CUSD second interim financial report. Speaking to the comments earlier, I mean, I don't want to speak to negotiations. I'm no longer at that table, but we've had a lot of these difficult conversations over time about the budget in this district. I happened to be looking at files 2 days ago, back to 2014, looking for a board approval of a different MOU. And there it was, a discussion about budget cuts and a need to look at the budget. I've often said there are many truths in the world. What you've heard tonight and to the community is true. In this state and in this nation, we do not pay educators enough. I think Stoics would say that we need to concern ourselves with the things we can control and the things we can't control. We need to learn how to accept them. There are certain things we can control. Over the last few years, what we could control is we could offer salaries to the tune of 3%, 2019-20, 3% 2020-21, over 5% and bonuses in the last year. We are at a place again where the budget, which is the second item on the agenda, now shows, because of projecting too high what we thought our tax proceeds would be, flipping from basic aid into community funded back into LCFF, declining enrollment, the drying up of COVID funds, categorical funds being given to us that can only be spent in a certain way. All that can sound like a lot of excuses. Sean Reardon said to me, or said tonight, and has said in previous meetings, that I wholeheartedly endorsed the raise last year. I did. I did because I know how much our staff need it. And I did it for all our staff. And, you know, if anybody looks at my own contract depends and relies on the same percentage increase as any other employee. We've tried to make a point of establishing with our labor partners the idea that we take care of everybody, maybe not in an equal way, maybe sometimes proposing in an equitable way. I appreciated last year that we were able to do this with CUTA in particular, with a flat amount assigned to all the employees, no matter where they were. I think that was more equitable to younger employees. There is work, has been mentioned, about workforce housing. We do have an opportunity to investigate workforce housing to recruit and retain younger employees. We are trying to do that because while the state has not delivered us the funding to be able to offer a raise at this time, and I don't want to get too much into it because I'll get accused of negotiating away from the table, but clearly everybody's talking about it. I will say workforce housing is another thing. We've seen it happen at Jefferson. You've seen 2 bonds, I think, in Ravenswood and in South San Francisco in the last few months. There will be an effort here in this district to continue to explore workforce housing as a way to recruit and retain younger employees. It is true when I hear about the benefits piece, you can't have both things. You can't have full family benefits for all employees and a raise. One's got to give. And as I heard from someone bringing up, it was a recession negotiation. We are also looking at the fact that we're in a shortfall in 3 years. It's there. It's hard for me to hear all the stuff without me saying to the community, we want to give more. There will be a time when we are committed to give more. At this time, I want to confirm that the budget, and if you wait for the second item, you will see, does not confirm that ability. Even though we were able to give 11% of raises in the last 3 years, we can't catch up to over the hill. And I will say, too, that another thing we can continue to do, and we met yesterday with a Mid-Coast Council representative, Sophia, our board president, and I did, and we continue to talk to Senator Becker's office, whether that's Sophia or Kim or me. We keep lifting up to our political representatives that this ain't right. Anybody can go on Google or an internet search, a device of your choosing, and put in U.S. News World and Report and see that per pupil funding for Cabrillo Unified is half of what it is to our neighbors in the south at Pescadero La Honda, and almost a third of what it is for our neighbors in Woodside, Hillsborough, and on and on and on. Teachers tonight speaking have it right. You're not going to get paid as much as those over the hill because we don't have parcel taxes like over the hill, and we don't have funding like over the hill, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry for that reality, but it is a budget reality. We will continue to try to go to the negotiations table in good faith. We will continue to try to work to balance the needs of our staff, our students, our families, and we will try to continue to negotiate in good faith to the best we can. But in the current situation, it is true that we are again in a budget shortfall, that we did anticipate more money coming in from taxes last year and basic aid being kinder to us, and that's why we gave the raises we did last year, and yet now we're spent. And so I'm sorry for that. That's a reality. It's not something I can control. I'm not happy about it. I wish things were different. And then you will see some reports from our folks at ISOM Advisors, and Makiko Sato is here tonight. Thank you very much, Makiko. And braving the rain, thank you. And to talk about our bonds and what our bond funding could look like so that we can release the next tranche of bond funding so we can get on with it with the work that we've done to try to finally get to be where we can anticipate, God willing, construction at El Granada and Fairlawn View, where the board has now committed $22 million at Fairlawn View, $25 million at El Granada, and we've identified another $20 million for El Granada in the proposed plan as we continue to work with that school site to talk about their modernization needs. And that concludes my report.
Thank you very much, Sean. All right, so that brings us to the consent agenda, item 4. Thank you for briefing us, Sean. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
I do have one comment, a question on the agenda, on the consent agenda, and that pertains to item, let me see the item 4. The one, the board policy on the facilities master plan. That's under consent, right?
Yeah.
So my only comment on that one is the language in the policy specifies teacher housing needs. Can I make the motion to change the language to be more broad to employee housing needs?
We will need to pull out the item and move it to the last of the meeting.
Okay, so let's do that. I would make a motion to pull the item and make a separate agenda item at the end of the meeting.
I would ask a friendly amendment. I would ask you to approve the consent agenda and request that that item come to the end of the meeting.
Okay. It's the board policies one, which is?
Item P on the consent agenda.
Yeah, P. 4P, the master plan one.
It's the approval of governing board policy updates as recommended by the California School Boards Association, and you would need to bring that whole item for discussion, and then you can discuss it in detail at the end of the meeting.
Okay, so I'd make a move.
Can you just ask who seconded the original motion? It was Carmen?
Oh.
I did. You did the first.
Kim?
I did the second, yeah.
Okay. Okay, and the amend?
So I make a motion to amend and to pull that item from the agenda, put it at the end, so we can discuss it.
Okay.
With the proposed
Do we have a
change then.
second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mary Beth. And we're going to need a roll call for this item. Sophia?
Aye.
Kimberly? Aye. Carmen? Aye. Lisette? Mary Beth?
Aye.
Item passes 5-0.
Great, thank you. Okay, with that, on to our general business, Hatch Elementary School presentation, item 5A. Welcome. If you guys wouldn't mind, I think actually it's a good time to take a quick, like 90-minute break, not 90 minutes. Well, we're 90 minutes in, so that's what I meant. So we'll just take a quick 5-minute break. Yeah, we're not going to break for 90 minutes. Yeah.
I need a motion.
Oh, make a motion to take a 5-minute intermission.
Sophia, you do the motion. I need a second.
Second.
Thank you, Carmen. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Sorry, you guys, we're really excited. We just want to make sure we could pay attention the whole time. ado, our colleagues from Hatch, please come and share with us all about what's happening at Hatch.
Thank you. Hello to the members of the board and our district leadership. My name is Alyssa Jaramillo. I'm the school principal here at Hatch. Soy Elisa Jaramillo, la directora de la escuela Hatch. Mucho gusto.
Hello, everyone. Daniel Robles, the assistant principal. Daniel Robles, mucho gusto.
Thank you for warning me about that, Rosie. So we are very excited to share some updates about our school this year. Today, we're going to be talking about an overview of our school. We'll be sharing some of the ways that we do assessments at Hatch. We have a lot of data to share from last year's state testing from the California dashboard. We're going to talk about some of the wonderful enriching activities we do, and our PTO presence actually here, so thank you, Kendra, for all of your support with that. And we were a little ambitious. We have 3 glows and 2 grows. I forgot to update that, sorry. And we'll have time for questions at the end. With that, I'm going to let Mr. Robles start off.
So some information about Hatch. Hatch is located here in beautiful Half Moon Bay near Highway 1 and just a short walk from the beach. We are fortunate to house 2 educational programs. We have our 2-way bilingual Spanish dual language immersion program, as well as our traditional English program, supporting about 540 TK to 5th grade students as they grow academically. We are thankful for the great support we have from our community partners. Together, we strive to make Hatch Elementary School a student-focused and dynamic place of learning. So who attends Hatch? According to CalPAD's fall 2022 and 2023 data, the Hispanic population makes up 63.47% of our student population, with 344 students specifically. 1 American Indian, which is 0.18% of our student population. 5 Filipino students, 0.92%. 5 Asian students, 0.92%. 1 Black student, 0.18%. 166 white students, 30.63%. And 20 multiple subgroups and missing subgroups, 3.69%. And we have various assessments that we use to measure growth among students. For English language arts, we use Brigance, Fontes and Pinnell, Lexia Rapid, and Literably. For Spanish language arts, we also use Fontes and Pinnell, iStation, and Literably Español. For math, we use Bridges. And for CASP, which is a statewide test, we have the California Assessment of Student Performance and Progress. ELA and math is taken by our 3rd through 5th grade students. SLA by our 3rd through 5th grade students, and science for our 5th grade students.
Thank you. We also wanted to share the data of our students from last year, since that will be the data of the students who are in the school for the testing data we'll be showing. And so it's a very actually similar group. We did have a total of 542 students reported on the dashboard for last year as well, with the breakdown being just slightly different. Last year, we did have 239 English learners for a total of 44.1% of our school population. There were 5 students who were unhoused, with 0.9% of our school population. 287 of our students would be classified as socioeconomically disadvantaged, which is about 53% of our school population. And 57 of our students are students who have disabilities, which is about 10% of our population. In terms of the breakdown of the race and ethnicity of our students from last year, we had 5 students that identified as Asian for 0.9%, 5 Filipino for 0.9%, 352 Hispanic for 64.9%. There are about 20 students who identify as having 2 or more races for 3.7%, and 158 students that are white for 29.2%. And so these data points are coming straight from the California dashboard, and it is reflecting our academic progress on the state testing we did on CASP for English language arts and math. It will also be showing our English language progress. So this is a very quick demonstration of where we're at right now. Our whole school did score low in the ELA test and math. Our English language learner progress, though, I'm very proud of this, is we did score medium. And one of our glows for the end of the year, I'll share some data about that. As we move forward, though, I did want to break down what our data truly is looking like. So for English language arts, we did have quite a gap that we are working on. So we did have most of our student groups score in the very low category, and the only student group that scored high on ELA was the white population. For mathematics, you can see a similar breakdown, and it's really showing a lot of opportunity for how we can find ways to support our students. Of course, testing data for the CASP, it is definitely one point of data, but it's one way that we look at our students and monitor their growth. So for mathematics, we do have English language learners and students who are socioeconomically disadvantaged is very low. For low test scores, Hispanic and students with disabilities, and once again, our white students in the high category. Something that most of our school is having a tough time, and this is not unique to Hatch, unfortunately, was what is classified as academic engagement, which is really reflecting chronic absenteeism. Unfortunately, last year, there were a lot of students that were missing a lot of school, many for excused absences and health reasons. And that is something that we're still seeing this year, and we're really trying to work on making our school a fun place, trying to make sure we're keeping our students safe and healthy. Unfortunately, we scored very high with our chronic absenteeism last year. And a really positive is for our conditions and climate, we have a very low suspension rate. We only had 0.9 students of our population suspended at least one day last year. And that was students who are white and have disabilities, whereas our English language learners, Hispanic population, and socioeconomically disadvantaged population had very low rates of suspension. So parts of how we're trying to make our school a more fun place, really trying to make it enriching and a place that they don't want to miss any school to be part of. Some of these are made possible through district financing, and some are made possible through our parent organizations. We have Kinder Movement and PE. Kinder Movement serves TK through 3rd grade, PE 4th and 5th. We're so grateful to have the HEAL project at our school. Music for Minors is a weekly class that all of our students have access to. Art in Action is a beautiful program that our students get to participate in with the kind donated time of parents who come into the class and teach the lessons. We have the Junior Sheriff's Activity League, which is available for our 4th and 5th grade students during lunchtime. Our wonderful Mr. Feltz teaches 5th grade science. Oh, I'm so sorry, I skipped Junior Land Stewards, which is another wonderful program for our 4th graders. One of the special things in particular about Hatch is that we have an annual fiesta that is really put on by our SIPA program, our Spanish Immersion Parents Association, in conjunction with our teachers. And all teachers are able to have their students perform in fiesta, whether it's a cultural dance, it's a song. There are just many beautiful things that we got to have our first fiesta since the pandemic this year. And I look forward to seeing many more. We have the SF Opera Guild come out to work with our students, and they did an opera this year. Something that makes our school in particular special are our Amity interns. So that is something that is provided through PTO and SIPA. And this year, currently, we have 5 interns that came from Spanish-speaking countries, including Spain and El Salvador. And we have just such wonderful amities this year. All 5 of them really lend something special to our school, both academically and culturally. We're very lucky to have kindergarten aides in all of our kindergarten classrooms. They work one-on-one in small groups, supporting the whole class. And we also have Eagle Club on site, which is one of the 3 after-school programs we have at Hatch. And Eagle Club is really working on trying to find ways to support our students who are at Promise and need extra support with homework, with just, having fun at school, having a safe place to go after school. And the way that the district has been really helping Eagle Club get more resources. And of course, we have such a wonderful staff there. There's a lot of really exciting opportunities happening over there. And some of the fun traditions that we have at Hatch includes Oceans Week, which is actually so jam-packed with activities. It's going to be 2 weeks at the end of this month now. And we have our readathon, which is typically in January. We have a science fair that Mr. Feltz helps puts on for our 5th graders. And one of our 3rd grade teachers started a tradition last year. So there's been 2 years where we've had a President's Fair, which is really fun. And so that leads us to our glows and grows. Like I said, I'm so proud to say that last year we were able to reclassify 30 students as from English language learners to being proficient. And of those students, one was a student who was on an IEP in the English program. And of the 29 general education students, 17 were in the immersion program and 12 were in the English only traditional program. We are really working as a team. Mr. Robles has been leading the initiative of having our positive behavior interventions and supports framework encourage desired behaviors and create a positive school climate. His committee, which is a Hatch-specific committee, has also been working in conjunction with the Santa Clara County Office of Education to help all the schools in Cabrillo really try to make sure that PBIS is being used in effective ways on our school campuses. And we have a really special team that's helping us at Hatch. We are providing more academic support to our At Promise students, partnering with Eagle Club, having our Amity interns work with them. We have had meetings with our Amity interns, providing them with resources, helping them try to learn teaching strategies. We've been working with some teachers in particular who had a large group of students that needed a little extra intervention. And we just met with one of them, and she was able to report that she's seen some really positive growth, especially working with the Amities in her class. And we are experiencing our first full year using Benchmark Advance in the English classes and Benchmark Adelante curriculum in our immersion classes. And through district professional development and site-based professional development, we've been giving teachers a lot of time to learn how to best implement that in their classes to support our learners. We do, however, know that we still need to continue working and improving on supporting our At Promise students academically and emotionally, leading to better performance not only on state assessments, as you saw today, but on our local assessments. And we're working with our staff, with our interns, to implement targeted interventions to meet these needs of those student groups. I am happy to report I've been helping translate for some of our parent-teacher conferences this week. And I was, for instance, in a parent-teacher conference on Tuesday. The student started reading below grade level in the fall, and he grew 11 reading levels, which is incredible. And he is now not only past the entire grade level he's in the next grading level up. And this is an ELL, he's in our English program, and he's just doing a wonderful job. His teacher has really found a special way to support him in class. And we're really trying to improve our Tier 1 instructional strategies to meet the needs of all of our students. Thank you. Are there any questions?
Thank you very much. Are there any questions or comments?
I don't have any questions. I just want to say thank you for sharing everything, and you guys are doing an excellent job. And you know, it's like the data is not surprising. Who's doing not so well, but you know, it's just amazing all the things that you do to give them a base, just strong skills and social skills and academics, because it does make a difference when they move on to like middle school and I don't know, I'll see how it goes in high school. And I just speak from my own experience. I'm at Hatchie at heart. I also went to Hatch many moons ago, and I have a daughter. I know, and I have a daughter who just, you know, unfortunately, she did go to Hatch, and it was a hard transition because it was during the pandemic. So it was, she's a 4th grader, and then we came back from the pandemic, and then she was a 6th grader. But I do have to say that it did help everything that she did get from that school, from all the teachers and all the support. And if there's anything I could do to support you, please let me know. Again, I did miss the readathon because I was in Cunha meeting with the principal, but if there's in any way I extend that invitation. Like I said, I don't have a bias, but I am a Hatchie at heart. So yeah, thank you for being here.
Thank you. That means a lot coming from you, Ms. Cortez.
So I just have a question for each of you, just kind of off the cuff. I didn't prep you with this. What keeps you up at night? I mean, besides baby the baby, I don't know. You used to get waken up by the baby, but.
Yeah, molars are coming in. Last night was definitely a rough one. You know, it's thinking to the next day, making sure that we have all of our wonderful teachers covered, making sure that that student that had a tough day, maybe at lunch, you know, maybe they had a disagreement with a friend, that we can make sure to check in on them, make sure the next day is better. When we have these big rainstorms, making sure that our students are going to be able to get into class safe, trying to really think, okay, who's out? How can we make sure that all of our students have a safe place to be at school, that they're able to feel supported? That's really it for me. What about you, Mr. Robles?
If I'm being completely honest, having gone from my transition from teaching to now being in administration, when I get home at night, I am tired and I am ready to go to bed. I'm sleeping much earlier now, But I really appreciate the leadership of Ms. Jaramillo and our team at Hatch, because I do feel that when we do find something that we know is an issue, we work together collaboratively to do what we can to make sure things result in the best way possible. So I really appreciate our team, and I hope that also helps me sleep very comfortably at night.
Very good. We're glad that's the case. We many of us, I think, feel you're just too tired to be kept up at night by anything, because you know you're going to wake up the next day and it's going to be right there. So thank you so much, both of you. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I've got a question on sorry.
Yeah.
I was really glad to see in here, thank you for all you're doing first. But I was really glad to see in here the improving Tier 1 instructional strategies that you're doing. I'm just curious about that. Do you have any details of what you are doing for that you can share?
Definitely. So I don't mean to speak for you, but we've really worked as a team, and Mr. Robles is really helping a lot of our teachers who have students that are maybe making minimal progress, going through SST cycles, which are when there's a team meeting to discuss the needs of the student, really focusing on what interventions need to be put in place, deciding on how those interventions will be made, you know, and what kind of progress monitoring can happen. Now, the truth of the matter is a lot of our students, we don't have time to do an SST for each one, so we're being strategic. But those interventions end up becoming things that really help the whole class. So typically that's happening both with behavior but also with academics. We have also really been trying to have our teachers incorporate more of the online programs that we're lucky to have in this district. Things like Lexia, iStation, for instance, they are not only ways for you to be able to deliver targeted instruction right at their level, because it's an adaptive program that changes what they're offered based on how they performed previously, but it's also a way for teachers to collect data. And those programs, both of them have ways that you can go into the system, see what they're struggling with, and it offers you printable lessons that you can use in a small group with that student. And so those are just a few of the examples, but we have really, really hardworking teachers at our school. And it's really also just trying to make sure that we're supporting them and trying to make sure that they are able to have, you know, schedules that are running smoothly and communication from us so that they can have that time with their students and meet them where they're at.
Thank you. Regarding the Eagle Club, what percentage of At Promise students actually participate in that?
So I don't handle the enrollment of Eagle Club. That is something that goes through the migrant office. But they have specific criteria that they use to decide who is enrolled. Dr. Bhatia, it looks like you wanted to turn on your mic.
I happen to have that magic number. So it's, and it might be 100, over 100 now, but it's 100, and 100% of those students, 100% of the students are at Promise.
So yes, 100% of the students in Eagle Club
and
are
there
at
are
Promise.
approximately 100 students, K through to 20 in each grade, 20K, 21st, 2nd, 23rd, 24th, 25th. That's at the Eagle Club after-school program at Hatch.
Right, but I'm just trying to understand that what percentage of at-promise students are we actually reaching with Eagle Club? Meaning,
Because you have like, what's your total at Promise? It's Hatch is like 200 something, 300?
It's hard
So
because
half
the
of-
numbers overlap each other.
Yeah,
So there's many different criteria we use, students with disabilities, students who are English language learners, students who are socioeconomically disadvantaged, and one student could fall into all three of those categories.
Yeah.
right, so.
Unduplicated count.
Sophia's
Unduplicated, yeah.
percentage is correct. So what is our unduplicated, like 43%? We're about 42%. So
Across this district,
across
it
the
may be
district,
a
so
little higher in
maybe
the
here it's
elementary.
55,
probably
50%.
Yeah, because it's elementary.
But 50% of an enrollment of 500 is about 250, so. it's
So then there's
about-
still another 150 students that they're in the class during the day, they're at Promise, they're part of that group that are the very low when we're talking about test scores and we talk about achievement gaps. I mean, there's so much that we don't control in their lives.
Yeah.
Parents working 2 jobs, you know, and all of the other dynamics. Is there anything else that you would wish for serving at Promise students?
Definitely, and I do want to add, so Eagle Club is one of our 3 after-school programs. Jesus Contreras was able to form a contract with Workshop 2 years ago, and through that contract, we were able to offer students scholarships, completely free to go to that program. We've made very good use of those scholarships. And we've been very strategic. We've really been trying to wait a few weeks into the school year and see the students who are having a hard time being picked up, or having a hard time getting those homeworks turned at the beginning of the year, so we can make sure that, you know, maybe they're on the wait list for Eagle Club, but it's a very popular program, but we're able to get them into Workshop. We're still working both with our Amity interns and with our staff, and me with our leadership committee in particular. And Dr. Bhatti has been helping support this kind of brainstorming of how we can offer more either before or after school intervention time. Unfortunately, we do have a posting for a job that we haven't been able to fill this year, but we have had some applicants who are interested in picking it up for next year. And so that's something that I'm really looking forward. It would be an ELD TOSA who would really be helping us be able to continue to work on these areas of growth for us and be able to not only possibly see students directly, but also help our staff with best educational practices for our ELs.
Thanks. And then you mentioned that Amity Scholars, and they're working with Eagle Club after school during.
No, sorry, they're not allowed to work after school hours, so they're working all day in the classrooms. Every student's classroom has at least one Amity that is assigned to it at some point during the week.
Okay, so both the English only and the. Got it.
Yes.
Thank you for that.
And we have met periodically with the interns to make sure that we're maximizing the use of their time. So, you know, we've looked through their schedules. If there's time that wasn't being adequately used, we were able to reallocate it to classrooms that have a little higher level of need. Mm-hmm.
I have a follow-up question, actually, with regards to Eagle Club and some of the after-school programs and ELOP and all those acronyms. To what extent are some of these programs at risk for being phased out when we run out of funding? I hate to ask like the sad question, but
yeah,
I know with a lot of our,
ELO.
yeah, for Eagle Club, because I know with a lot of our budget, we have had bumps in even administration because we got grants for certain specific things. I think Sean referred to earlier as categorical funding, which could cause some confusion for people, I think. But I do worry based on the success of the programs that we're seeing, what's happening.
The way that the ELO program came about, it is still something that it is potentially being ongoing. It is going to be going through the roller coaster of the budget, but it is something that was legislated as ongoing.
Okay.
So that is for the ELO program.
And Eagle Club comes from Eagle? Okay.
Eagle Club
Okay,
comes
so
from
that's in
there.
good shape. Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments?
I have one last question. I was wondering if, Yes. I was wondering, that's so great. I was wondering, I'm not a professional, but I am a parent, and I did notice when my child was there, because there's only one teacher versus middle and high school, they have multiple teachers. There's more, it's easier to connect these supportive services with the teacher. And I've noticed sometimes there's a lot of great people who are trying to do like after school support with either reading or the Eagle Club. But I guess my humble suggestion as a parent is that whatever supportive services that there is, especially in the elementary level, because there's only one teacher, if we could make it also a priority so that there is a connection between the classroom teacher and that service that is being provided. And I don't know if it's already happening. I just feel like a lot of the times the kids are already struggling. And so when someone comes to support them, I think that it's amazing the miracles that could happen if the supporting staff and the home teacher are connecting and could help that student succeed. And it's more like working smarter, not harder. And I'm as a parent, I think that's what really helped. And it was more that I had to make those connections because I was like, I need help. And I was, advocating for my child, but I feel like that's always something that I felt that's missing that would really help in support to all the great things that you guys are doing, and especially with one home teacher and elementary. That's just my humble suggestion.
Thank you.
Great. Did you have an extra comment? Oh, okay. Okay. Great. Thank you. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alyssa. Thank you, Danielle. Thank you for your leadership there. And thank you for taking care of kids when mountain lions are in the neighborhood.
Oh, yeah. We're ready. It was fancy dress day, so we were ready and dressed up.
It's never a dull moment. All right, thank you. All right, item 5B, approval of CUSD's second interim financial report for fiscal year 2022-2023. Jesus, take it away.
Good evening, President Elaine, members of the board. I bring to you the second interim, which is the second, after the it's approved, after the budget is approved. I brought you in December the first interim. Now it is the second interim. The second interim is one that gets us everything that happened from July 1st to January 31st. I just want to remind the board that the first interim was filed as qualified. Qualified means that there is a chance that we might not be able to meet all of our obligations, our fiscal obligations. So we bring you the second interim, which is everything that happened from the board adoption to January 31st. And it contains all the funding that was received through the Budget Act and through every state and federal initiatives that have come to the district or are promised to come to the district. I reminded you that the first interim was qualified, and this second interim now is getting ready for us to go in and close the school year. I just want you to keep in mind that the second interim right now is that I bring to you in March, because I'm going to come back to this slide, that if everything goes the way we want it to go, we have second interim, and then we work on budget development, and we bring to you in June the adopted budget. We need to adopt a budget for 23-24 next year. So we always look for guidance at the Department of Finance, at the California Department of Education. We always keep the FCMAT, the Fiscal Crisis Management guidance, and we always are in tune with what the San Mateo County Office of Education, who are our agent, our fiscal agent, our fiscal oversight. So what happened? In January 10, we had the promise of, the governor brought forward what might be, what will be a first approach to what 2023-24 budget is. It is a proposed budget. In that proposed budget, and let me emphasize proposed budget, it is the 8.13 COLA. The state is also facing a deficit that in January it was 22.5 million, and it is growing. Billion, oh my God, and it is growing. 22.5 billion and growing. So the uncertainty of the 2023-24 state budget is that it's uncertain. When is it going to be settled? It's going to be settled in May. The May revised brings yet another approach. Right now, Sacramento is moving into how this is going to look like, how this first promise, the January promise, is going to be then operationalized. So I put in here several of the main points of that budget in January. And one of them was the promise of 8.13% COLA. Then about 300 million put for an LCFF equity multiplier, which is directed at schools with 90% or 85% that participate in free meals, not free and reduced, free meals. So we do not qualify for that. The promise of the continued funding for the expanded learning opportunity program. That we do have a promise on. The second year of transitional kindergarten expansion. We hear at the state level that the transitional kindergarten is going to be coming with some dollars. Yes and no. Yes for an LCFF district. No for a basic aid district. And I will go back and say what our status is related to basic aid and or LCFF. Then we also have the support of 8.13 COLA for the state preschool reimbursements. We serve in preschool to the tune of approximately $700,000, and it's applied to that. So it is 8.13 is not across all the programs. It is program by program, and then for the most part, 8.13 to, that's what it was promised in January. So there is a delay in what the state said that there was going to be transitional kindergarten and full kindergarten facilities, delayed on that. And one thing that came also is that, okay, no 10 to 1, 12 to 1 for the 2023-24 school year for transitional kindergarten. And one thing is that it was affirmed that the ADA, the average attendance, to be a prior 3 years. So how are we going to be then accounting for attendance? There is how it is. So these are the points that the promise of the budget for 23-24. These are the highlights of what came. And to build a multi-year projection, we go to our assumptions. These are the assumptions that most of the districts, most of us, go by, and then these are from the, I took this from the School Services of California, which are pretty standard across all of us. And it's important to note that our CalSTRS and CalPERS are back at high cost. So you can look at the rate that we have in 23-24 is it was at 25.37 for our CalPERS, and it goes back to 27. That is all for our classified staff. For our certificated staff, it's keeping at 19.10. So these are our contributions, the district contributions to the retirement funds of classified and certificated. Just a reminder that our profession is one of the last professions that has a retirement plan. Many people out there in Silicon Valley do not have, they have the 401ks, they have other forms of savings for retirement. We have a CalPERS and CalSTRS. And many of the things that existed in the past for retirement are no longer. We still have one that we continue to get to, but it's a high cost.
I just want to jump in here to accentuate this point. Years ago, the state started pushing these costs onto districts and to employees. I think the employee rate that they had to contribute to their retirement, that we have to contribute to our retirements, I'm in that group, is leveling off, but the state continues to increase. That pressure, the pressure of health benefits and increasing medical dental costs, are great on districts. The cost of keeping the lights on, don't get me started about PG&E, their increased rates. So utilities rates, the cost of construction, the cost of retirement, the cost of employer contributions to CalSTRS and CalPERS. This is kind of like the hidden thing that people don't maybe necessarily account for and say, hey, you're getting all this money, but it's going out in different ways. We feel the same kind of inflation pressures that other people do. So I just want to note that.
Okay, so these are the assumptions that we build multi-year projections. And as we always bring you to whom do we serve? And a few minutes ago, you were asking about our unduplicated. At Hatch, with our duplicated, it's about 252 students, and you go down we have a total of unduplicated on the data that we certified for this school year. We have 998 students that we call unduplicated students. Why is that important? Because many of our grants, we are funded based on this. This is what is going to be feeding what we have as the LCFF calculator. So this is our enrollment, and how many of those students are unduplicated. This is what we build LCAP for. This is the students that we say we owe actions and services to the tune of $2.3 million approximately to serve students who are disadvantaged. But we have a reality. Reality is our enrollment, our declining enrollment. I gave you in here what are the projections that we have and where we have been. I gave you here the 17-18 until the projections that we're having for 25-26. These are, as I said, projections. So we are in declining enrollment. And I say, well, is that a good thing or a bad thing? If we stay an LCFF funded district, it's a very bad thing because we would only be funded to that tone of those students. If we go back to be a basic aid school district, it's a good thing. We can get the funding for, above the funding that the state would give us based on our enrollment alone. Declining enrollment is a reality. This is the LCFF calculator. This is what our numbers would be based on the dollars that we calculate that the state would give us due to our enrollment. You remember that last year, the state of California provided a 13.6 COLA. What that did to a district like ours is that it got us to go back to LCFF, because the state of California last year gave to all the LCFF districts a 13.6 COLA that we, then Basic Aid District, had to account for, and then that puts us this year into an LCFF situation. We expect, according to the assumptions that we have right now, that next year we will go back to be a Basic Aid District with the assumptions that we have right now and that I presented to you. So with all of this, and based on some of the money that we have gotten, that it is discretionary grant, which is with arts, music, instructional materials, the AMIM grant. The notion of discretionary is that it can be used for any of those purposes. One, starters-aligned professional development, instructional materials in these subject areas, professional development and improving school culture, diverse and culturally relevant book collections, and operational cost, including retirement and health care and cost increases. The fifth one is COVID PPE, personal protective equipment.
Again, I'm going to take my privilege here and chime in on this. Remember in June when we talked about this, when the governor's budget was finally resolving and the legislature and the governor kind of hashed out their deal, they talked about this. And at that time, I said a lot of this would be keep the wolves from the door money. What that means is because we have the ability to use that on operational costs like retirement and healthcare cost increases, that keeps the wolves from the door and allows us to use money for things that otherwise would keep us from being able to do it. That is why we use so much of that money on instructional materials. Currently, Dr. Bhatia is working with the K-5 on a science pilot, and the money will come from that. And I just want to note, and this is not comfortable to say, but that is a way decade-old, out-of-date textbook. It's necessary in our world to have current, adequate textbooks, and so a lot of those materials will go for instructional materials and the professional development from their publishers to support district-wide unified curricular materials. And then the operational costs of retirement and healthcare cost increases, again, I'm just gonna ring that bell again. People cannot forget that our costs are increasing. The state is increasing our costs. PGE is increasing their costs, construction costs increase, all these, and the healthcare costs increase. So that funding, and people say, well, wait, it's for arts, music, and instructional materials. Yes, but it's for all those things. And I just don't want to put a point in it. I want to be transparent about this. We're using that money to cover ostensibly bad debts that the state won't pay.
But wait a minute. It's only $1.7 million that we were, and wait a minute, it is something that the governor then came up and said, okay, that we told you that it was going to be $1.7 million, it's gonna be less than that. It's gonna be a 1/3 less. It's equivalent to about 36% less. but it is not settled yet. We anticipate that with the May revise, we will get some clarification as to how much this is really going to be. Because of that, and given that this is authorized with these 5 different purposes, what we ask the board is to consider allowing us or authorizing us to spend that, if it gets to be $1.726 million, that we continue to pay for those VAPA initiatives that are currently in the LCAP to the tune of $150,000. That in 23-24, we get the adoption that it will be approximately 612, approximately $220,000. And then a science adoption for elementary to about $450,000. And the rest to be used for that authorized retirement, healthcare, and other allowable costs that come with that. Now, the same proportion, if it is about the 36% reduction on it, I gave you on the right what that would look like. We don't know what it will end up being, but what I will be asking is for authorization to use it with this methodology, using this methodology. That would secure the adoptions and then help us get some of the operational cost. Why? Because we are in a bind. So I gave you here that this is what our multi-year projection looks like on what on the current status of expenditures. That means that we are at a deficit of about $500,000 this year, and a deficit of $300,000 next year. But this takes into account that if we go back to be basic aid, we get to keep for 1 year our supplemental taxes. And we anticipate that to be about $2 million. So it's not that we got any better, it's just that we would be keeping the supplemental tax. And then you see it on the following year, back to the $2.5 million. So that is what the current reality is, and we have a deficit spending that we would need to bring to the board, some ways in which we can reduce our spending. And because of this reality, the County Office of Education might be requesting us to bring to you, again in May, what's our status of our spending, and what's our plan, and what our plan would be. So President Lane will get the love letter saying, you know, we would need to do something about it, okay? So with that is that we're asking the board to approve this, the 2 things in here. One of them, the second interim with a qualified certification and authority to get the discretionary grant as I presented to you. We will continue to work with the County Office of Education, following FICMAT guidelines, and then also figuring out all this writing of the, I call it a 2.2 million roller coaster. Basic aid, LCFF, And as we move forward, if we get to be basic aid again, our enrollment, our declining enrollment is not a lot to worry about. But we stay LCFF, or if we go back to LCFF, then declining enrollment it's a big issue, because we only get funded on that we present. So with that's what I had for the board. Any questions that you would have regarding this action item on 2 issues?
Thank you so much, Jesus. First, before we go to questions and discussion, do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, thank you so much. I have a million questions, but I'm going to not go first.
Okay, I'll start. I'll do a few and then I'll let you go. On that $2 million, if we go back into basic aid that we're assuming in this, at some point, I assume you might be able to get a better idea of what that number is going to be, because, I mean, that could make or break us. I mean, that's a big deal. I mean, will you have an idea at some point, because you know how many schools are in the pot and about what the pot's going to be and timeline like for that?
We will get from the county, like in the late spring, what that number would be.
Okay, and then why are we, I understand if we're qualified, that means we're in the red 3 years out, but why are we not negative? Doesn't negative mean you're in the red for this year? What does negative mean?
Negative means that we definitely will not make it. This qualified,
Will not make it 3 years out, or make it this year?
We'll make it this year. So this is where I think that the county is going to be coming with their guidance and say.
You mean they might say we need to be negatively qualified and not, what's the other word?
Yes.
Qualified.
Yes, so asking qualified, they might send President Lane, no, we don't think so.
Yeah, that doesn't look very qualified to me.
Well, we did receive a letter a couple weeks ago from the county saying that they accepted our qualified recommendation.
From first interim, which didn't have as much red on it.
This is true.
And if we are red in this year, how do we pay our bills? I mean, do you have to take a loan, or how does that work?
We will pay our bills, because remember, these are our projections. If we end up not being able to pay our bills, if we don't pay, don't get our payroll, that's just the end. We are going to be able to pay our payroll. So.
Just making sure.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead, and then I got more.
So just to confirm my understandings, I think, okay, so first I want to say, my career, much of it was at a large international company in a highly regulated environment that was operating in like 110 countries. And school funding and budgets in California are like crazy complicated even compared to that. So I just want to say thank you so much for keeping like a good handle on all these different pockets and all these different rules. I've been studying this for 6 years and I feel pretty comfortable with it, but it's still like so complicated, especially with all the COVID funding and the ELOPs, and it's like it got worse. And now we're going back to kind of categorical funding style again, because everybody wants to like lay claim to the bunch of money that, you know, this thing with the, sorry, it's an LA thing, right? The LCFF equity multiplier is like an additional complication on top. So I just want to thank you for that and just encourage folks on the board or in the public that feel like, oh, this is like overwhelming and what is going on, like that's a normal feeling. Please do reach out to Jesus or reach out to me. I'm very comfortable with this as well. And I know what I'm out of my comfort in front of Jesus because this is complicated and it does require a lot of attention, because I think large statements can be said about funding going to administrators when really there are a lot of grants behind that funding, or funding, you know, different kind of assumptions based on cherry picking, quite honestly, that really, unless you understand the budget fully from the point of view of our LCAP in particular, it's easy to kind of get lost in that, and that's just normal. So I just wanted to say that. And I want to just confirm my understanding on 2 key points. Again, I think where there's some confusion. So I'm hearing, and please make corrections if I'm wrong, the governor has proposed a budget in January. That budget is subject to back and forth with the legislature, and ultimate approval. The May revise will be directional, but the budget in the state is not approved until June 30th.
June 30th, yes.
So that means July will know more. However, with the additional complexity that the income tax filing deadline was extended in the majority of California's counties because of all the storms and the, I forget what they call it, but it's like months out. The IRS now has extended to October, November. California is expected to extend past that too. All that means what that means is that in a state that is so highly dependent on personal income taxes, especially based on those in the upper income tax brackets who tend to use that time to keep their money as long as they can and not pay it till later, we're going to have a lot more uncertainty about the California state budget. So that $20 billion that you mentioned earlier, like, we're not going to really know till the end of the year what the state budget looks like with, I think of my nerdy way, maybe Mr. Sintoni will appreciate confidence intervals. Like, those confidence intervals are going to be really big for this year's budget because of the income tax filing deadline extensions and perhaps more. So is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
That's number one.
That is correct.
Okay.
That is correct.
So,
we will, statutorily, it is in June that we get the budget. But not too long ago, we did not have those budgets signed in June.
right. Number 2, so while the governor has proposed the 8.1% COLA that people have been referring to, this does not apply to total school budgets. It applies to the LCFF portion, which is the big chunk for many schools, including us this year, but not the whole chunk for all school districts and not for us most likely next year. So when the governor proposes an 8.1% cost of living increase for LCFF, it does not mean that Cabrillo Unified School District will have 8.1% more budget next year.
Here's
Correct?
how it is going to be working. If we go back to be basic aid, we will need to account for 8.13% in our LCFF calculator, but it will be out of the taxes that we would be receiving. So it's accounting for it, and then to make sure that if we go back to basic aid and keep our supplemental taxes the following year, that would be next year.
That makes sense. Okay. And so I have a bunch more kind of specific detailed questions.
Wait, I don't think we got to the bottom of that, though. Because this year we're LCFF.
We are LCFF.
So what she's asking is, will our budget be 8.1% bigger than it was last year?
That would have been last year.
So because the 8.1% would apply for this
23,
year to
24.
next year, because the governor's budget's for 23-24 fiscal year, which is like August 1st.
Yes. So that notion that we have received, no, we have not.
Yeah, we have not, it's proposed for
next year.
But even then, it's not 8.1% of our entire budget.
Correct. It's just the LCFF portion. It's just the LCFF portion that would be impacted by that.
I just want to say, too, that there is ambiguity about this also, because the Legislative Analyst Office has said that the governor's picture is too rosy.
Yep.
They are looking at certain funds that have been allocated for us and saying, oh, for us to be able to deal with this, we may have to cut from this fund, cut from that fund, cut from this fund. So this is not a done deal. The Legislative Analyst Office is a nonpartisan, governmental, quasi-agency, and I've watched this over the last 20 years, where they say it's not enough, it's not enough. Well, Jerry Brown, I think they liked and thought he wasn't rosy, and he wasn't too rosy, but Gavin Newsom and the governor's budget is being called potentially overambitious and not realistic.
And this is true. I heard this from the Legislative Analyst Office representative in a meeting in Sacramento like 2 weeks ago, three weeks ago. So this is true. And they don't normally diverge from the governor's finance department that much, as much as they do this year. So basically, typically they're a little lower, but this year they're like, no, really, it's not that great. And we're already at 20 billion. So I think that that is important. Taking back to like a kind of a different angle, the micro issue, thank you for explaining the pensions, because I think for folks who don't have experience with the 401k world or don't have experience in pension world, it's kind of hard to kind of wrap your head around the major differences between a defined benefit retirement plan, like a pension, where whatever you put in, you're guaranteed a certain amount when you come out, compared to a defined contribution plan, which is more like a 401k, which typically maybe you have a 5% contribution that you make, your employer might add another 5%, total contributions 10% of your annual salary, which is very different than the 27 something percent that I know the district contributes, and then on top of that, what the employees are contributing. So it's like a different world, like when you're feeding into a system. And I think that's an important part of when we think about like holistically at the state level, why things are so expensive. There are features of how we do what we do that makes it more expensive. So when you guarantee a certain payment at a certain future date, that it might be 30 years out for some people, like you have to make sure you can cover that. No matter what is happening in the stock market.
For the whole lifetime of that person.
For the whole lifetime of that person, for whatever is happening, we could be in a depression and we have to cover that, right, for people, as opposed to 401k, which, good luck, whoever, well, good luck, whoever's like banking on that 401k for your retirement, like you gotta just choose your time to retire carefully, because you can't do it in a trough. You have to make sure like you time it. And so now's not a good time to retire
For STIRS,
with a 401k.
Referring to what you were saying, for STIRS, for example, if you were an employee prior to 2011, you get to maximize at 2.4 times the number of years of service times the average of your 3 higher salaries.
So let's say, so can you do, you're like the calculus professor. I'm pretty good at math, but you're like way better. So for someone that, for that number, it was $100,000, just because that makes the math easier. Like what is the pension benefit on that?
So somebody with approximately, I run it to our highest salary, $110,000 that our teachers have. It runs about, depending on the number of years. 20 year, they would be having approximately $4,500. If it is
per month,
a month, a month. And if it is higher than that, it's $5,500. So it matters the number of years. It matters the salaries that they get.
Okay.
So it's a whole formula, and it gets to be into.
So it's about half.
Forever.
It's about 50. I'm sorry, I had to do the math on my computer because I'm not that fast. About 54,000, just like about half of roughly about half. If you,
I think that we should not get into the details or in the weeds of a retirement system, and I'll just say it's based on service credit, the number of years of service, the salary, the maximum salary for STIRS, the top average of the top 3 years, mostly for PERS, the top year, and then the years served and your age. So it will vary. There's a whole benefit chart, but what I would suggest too is, again, it is one of the sectors, we are lucky that is one of the sectors that still has a retirement defined benefit or whatever. However, I want to point this out again. It doesn't matter what the cost of living adjustment is, because that's not just some extra money you get, because on the flip side, in the shell game, the state is saying, oh, by the way, the district has to pay more on that. So you're robbing Peter and paying Paul.
no, thank you. And Sean, just to be clear, I'm not trying to pin actual numbers for the purpose of calculations, but just for those of us that are less familiar with the pension world, it's helpful to understand how it works, and for those of us here to understand, like, we're making significant contributions, like what is this, how is this benefiting our employees? I think that's important for us to understand.
There are many of us in the business, if you're going for like 30 years of employment, will come in between 60 to 80% of our final compensation or top compensation every year. And I think that is that is one of the promises for, quite frankly, coming into the business of public education, is that there are usually some kind of health benefits, and there is CalPERS or STRS. When I worked in the prison system, I was a PERS member. I never jumped out of the PERS system. That was a big draw into public service. And I remember my parents saying, you shouldn't do that. This is not a great way to, bank on the future. But it is one of the things that we rely on is the retirement. The unfortunate part is, as the state requires more contribution from the employee and from the district, it means that the district is, number one, it means it takes a bite out of employee salaries. And number two, it means that the district, insult to injury to our employees, the district now has to contribute more to the state for basically what was a promise because of the PEPRA, the Public Employee Pension Reform Act, that passed, I don't know, was that in 2013, actually, I think, 2011, but instituted, I think, anyway. So let's just say that when you look, it is important for everyone to keep their eyes on the bouncing ball of how much our contribution is, because it just keeps increasing for districts. We're not at the end, and people need to remember, we're getting inflation on our pension system that the state requires we pay, and I would say recanting on their promise all these years. We have the lights that cost more, and we have health benefits that cost more. I feel for the employees. I am an employee. It's a drag. It's a drag to have to hear this over and over again as many years as I've been a superintendent. It ain't fair. It's not fair to our employees. It's not fair to the kids. It's not fair to the families. And it sure as hell ain't fair to Cabrillo Unified School District because we're so underfunded compared to the other districts in the county. It ain't fair.
I agree wholeheartedly. I have one last question, unless anyone asks any more that make me think of others.
Well, I was just thinking because we're talking about STRS and PERS.
Oh, yeah, that's fine.
I thought it was interesting, the difference, the percentage we give to STRS and PERS. Do we know why is that?
If politically means anything, CalPERS is much, much bigger than CalSTRS.
You have all the state employees.
I do like it when you always say when I was CalPERS when I was in prison. You weren't.
Well, when I worked in prison. When I worked in
prison.
If I went to prison, they would take my pension away. But there are many state employees. PERS is a very strong system. It is funded differently. It has different calculus. Both systems are under grave threat because they are funded in great part by investments. That's the other concern, and the elephant in the room is that as those investments fail, that's when the state requires the system to pay more, and yet the state doesn't pay the system more to fund it.
We have not recovered from the big recession when CalPERS and CalSTRS lost a lot of its.
That's a big factor, absolutely. Any other questions on like retirement stuff or health benefit stuff? I think I remember in the past someone had said health benefit costs go up like about 5% per year. Is that still our current assumption?
That is the current assumption also, that we roll it about 5% increase, and it has been a good assumption thus far.
So my last question is, because the deficits are now so much larger than the first interim, and we're in the red this year, and all subsequent years in the forecast, what are the main drivers for that?
Well, we have a higher cost to meet our obligation to our students with disabilities, and that is big. We have our facilities. We have a lot of facilities to take care of, so those are important. We also have transportation issues that about $400, almost $500,000 of contributions, because we get a minimal part from the state for transportation. So those are basically our biggest contributions to from the general fund.
Questions or comments?
I've got a couple. I was really surprised actually I was wondering what the equity multiplier was, because I know we don't qualify. I was kind of shocked you said it was 90%.
90% or 85%, 90% at the high school, at the elementary school, and 85% for the high school. That free, not free and reduced, free, that qualified for free meals.
And you know the context for this, where this came from a little bit, because I can share a little bit about that too, is there was a big push to have in this year's budget from the governor more targeted funding for Black students as a key under at-promise group, as there was some concern that was not legally viable in the state of California because you can't target based on race funding, can't target funding based on race. There was the idea from the governor's office that this would be an approximation to be able to target Black students who, particularly in the LA area, in LA County, that would be in these schools that have 90% high, and to be fair, we have some challenges here socioeconomically, right? Like there are different worlds out there that we don't even see where you have 90% or more free eligible students, like students eligible for free lunch, not just reduced price, but free lunch. So that was the governor's attempt to target those. There's been lukewarm feelings about it, so it'll be interesting to see if it goes through. But in fairness, from kind of the state perspective, I think that there are groups and schools and districts out there that have some pretty significant challenges that they're trying to figure out how to address. So it is, unfortunately, to me, when I first saw it, it was like, oh God, another layer on the LCFF, makes things even more complicated, although I can understand the spirit. But my hope and dream one day is that we can simplify all of this to just make it a lot more fair and direct, but that would take a lot more sharing of money than people would want to do, so.
Yes.
Can I ask you a question about slide 9?
Okay.
On the property taxes?
Yes.
And the light, if you get it up there, it looks like the property taxes are going down. How does, from 23, 24 to 24, 25? Not this one, yeah.
Okay.
Slide 9. What, don't we?
It's also because
remember,
it's also because our projection came in too high, I think is probably where you saw that 6%.
How can our property taxes go down?
Property taxes, 28 million.
The light blue line. 28 million, 33 million, and then next year, 32 million?
31 million.
31.8? How are they going down?
That's a calculation. I don't have it right in here, but yeah, but I'll send you the information, why that is.
Okay, fair enough. And then,
Can you set it where was that?
Slide 9, the light blue line? The property taxes?
We're anticipating.
For that 1 year, 24, 25.
Yeah, I just wonder why it would go down. Or even be similar. Okay, well, you can let me know on that, that's fine.
I'll send.
Okay.
Mr. Contreras, will you send it to me and I will forward it to the board, please? And then I think a lot of this too is for the benefit of our chief business officer. He doesn't make these numbers up, these are the numbers he receives.
Right.
So I just want to disabuse anybody the notion that we're just writing it down on the back of a cocktail napkin.
Sorry, I didn't mean to accuse, I just am curious.
No, I didn't think, I'm not accusing you of accusing.
No.
Because we know if you could do that, you'd make them a lot higher.
And will being qualified have an effect on our bond rating?
It most certainly has the potential for that, but Makiko Sato, who is in here, can expand more on that, because that's in the next item. So.
Okay, and then I just have one comment, and I promise I'm done. We're gonna have to make cuts, and I just think cutting sooner rather than later is easier. Otherwise, that number just keeps getting bigger and bigger. So as a board member, I just want to encourage us to start looking at that sooner. I mean, at least in my opinion.
Well, okay, I've been quiet this whole time. Just don't cut music and arts because we only have 150,000 out of a grant of 1.1 million. Peace.
Good news. Good news
Well,
on
just
that.
to keep this in perspective, to keep this in perspective, you did have a ballot initiative that guarantees some of the money, once again, robbing Peter to pay Paul, from Prop 98 that will be dedicated to that. But I also want to say that you're seeing more investment in arts and music, if I'm not mistaken, Dr. Bhatia, than you have in years heretofore. So until we, please acknowledge the good things.
When we get the Prop 28 money that it has not been defined yet, then we will be going for that purpose. We had the block grant, now the Prop 28 that is going to be.
Jesus, I will also say that I have shared with Member Hines, because I know of her passion for arts and music, particularly music is one I share also, with a son who's a sax player in a college. I will say that we will probably wind up getting that money and taking away our other money and fueling it with that money to be compliant, but we have got to make cuts. I find it just always very humorous when I've got Mary Beth Alexander saying, we got to make cuts now, and then I got another board member saying, but not there.
Well, that's why we're going to do strategic planning, and we're going to look at equity, and the reality is we've got to draw the circle wide and talk about values, because, you know, there's lots of things that this small comprehensive school district would like to do, and we want to just not cut off arms and hands and feet and limp along. Opportunity, what is it? Brilliance can happen anywhere, but not opportunity. And we want to make sure we maximize opportunity for our kids.
I want to make sure that we all know that we still have a commitment to arts and music, visual and performing arts. We will not look to make immediate cuts there. It is something we promised to our parent-teacher organizations. It's something that we have, we will try to comply and keep that. We will be looking for cuts away from there, certainly, but no sacred cows.
Yeah. And tonight is not the time for a discussion about potential cuts, other than just the general point that when you're in the red, you have to look at efficiencies. Okay.
It's an action item.
Yeah, any other questions or comments? Otherwise, we can go to vote.
All right, those in favor, please say aye.
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 Do we have any opposed? No, thank you. Item passes 5-0.
Okay. And our next item has to do with another type of funding, and that is the dollars that our taxpayers gave us to use for the construction of our schools and modernization of our schools. And that is Proposition S and the refund. And there is all the information that Makiko, who is from ISER Advisors, and she is, and her team, the one who is going to be guiding us through it.
That's great. I just want to say one point of order that we do have on our agenda, item 5C, approval of CUSD's transportation services plan. I don't think that item's going to take long, but do we want to just go through it really quick?
I can go through it.
It'll be 5 minutes.
Okay. So I brought to you a plan that it has to do with transportation. This is one of the things that were approved last year, and the boards need to approve a plan that potentially could give us about 60% back of that little money that we get for transportation. So a plan is, as you saw it, basically that we only serve students who have IEPs and whose IEP team is that recommends that to meet the educational goals of that students, they need to be transported. At Cabrillo Unified, we only transport students who with IEPs, and I bring before you that plan to see if we can qualify for reimbursement up to 60% of our cost of function 3600.
Great, thank you, Jesus. And just a point of order clarification, because I think the document as we received it doesn't specify what you just said about students with IEPs whose team recommends that transportation be part of their services that they receive. I would like to make a friendly or motion to approve with that language inserted into the document.
I will amend it then to clarify that it is only those students whose IEP teams.
We would need a second and a vote.
As opposed to for board members, as opposed to like all IEPs, all students with IEPs, like for any reason, like dyslexia or whatever, like, you know, it's basically just those that the IEP, or the student study team, I guess it would be, or IEP team.
IEP teams, yeah.
IEP teams indicate that that's a necessary service.
So as I hear it, President Lane, you're making a motion with a friendly amendment to make sure that we specify that those are for services only for students whose IEPs require transportation as part of free and appropriate public education. We would need a second and you to vote to be able to confirm this item.
I have a quick clarifying question. Currently, who are we transporting?
Who are we transporting? Only students with disabilities whose IEPs indicate that they need the transportation to meet their educational goals.
That's what I thought. So we're already doing it.
We're already doing it.
Okay.
This plan is to see a bit about being reimbursed.
Yep. So this is no change to the services provided.
No change of
It's just
services.
the form that we need to submit to get the 60%, which is a nice, like, new thing, that we can get at least 60% of it back. I mean, we'll take it.
We'd need a second on the friendly amendment to the motion.
I do.
We'd need a vote on the motion.
No more comments? Okay. Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say no. Item passes 5-0.
That's right. Now, thank you, Jesus. Take us to the next item, which is item 5D, adoption of resolution number 02-2023, authorizing the issuance of not to exceed $23 million of CUSD general obligation bonds, election of 2012, Series D. And just our next item, it looks similar when someone just glances at it. So if I could just ask Akiko, when you introduce it, explain to us the context of what's coming next before you dive into this one.
Sure.
That makes sense.
Yes, the presentation is listed under item D, but it will cover both items D and E. All right, good evening, Board President Lane, members of the board, Superintendent Sean, cabinet members, and the community. Thank you very much for your time this evening. I am here to talk about the issuance of the general obligation bonds. Hopefully I can figure this out. The community has been very supportive of the district's bond program and has approved 3 separate bond authorizations since 1996. The 1996 bonds have been completely issued and completely repaid at this point. The district has 2 bond authorizations or bond measures from which there is remaining authorization. The 2012 Measure S bonds and the 2018 Measure M bonds. And we will be talking about the issuance of the final series of bonds from the Measure S bonds. So this will be the 4th series of bonds from the Measure S bond measure. The district issued 3 series of bonds, took a break, moved on to Measure M, and now we're coming back to it. As we look to issue additional bonds, there are 3 key inputs into the bond model that we look at, and we'll review them in turn. So the first information that we look at very closely is the district's assessed valuation. The district's assessed valuation is a key input into this model. And if you see on the table on the right, you can see from 2015 to present, the assessed valuation growth has been very strong. When we designed this bond program, we assumed around a 3.5% growth. So almost every single year since 2015, or actually every single year since 2015, the growth rate has been higher than that. Interest rate environment. I wish I had better news to share here, but compared to the time of the series, the earlier issuance of bonds, and in particular in 2022, interest rates increased significantly. What is shown here is the municipal market data, the MMD rates. This is the benchmark yield that we look at for tax-exempt bonds. And we look at this to see what the trends are in the municipal market, and you'll see that huge uptick in 2022. Interestingly, when you look at the table on the right-hand side, since October, those rates were coming down for a while. And when we kicked off this financing, they were back to about the low 2% for the 10-year MMD rate, which we were very happy about. Since then, the interest rates have started to increase again. The inflationary concerns have come back. And so when we put together this presentation, the 10-year MMD rate was, 2.55%. The most recent one today was 2.61%. In terms of the tax rate model, this graph shows the structure of those Series D bonds. And the Series D bonds will be structured to layer on top of the existing debt service in connection with the Measure S bond program. So those are the dotted green lines that are being added on. The red line represents the projected revenue with the $45 per $100,000 in assessed value, the tax rate that was estimated and provided to voters at the time of the election. So we'll be able to structure these Series D bonds to stay within that tax rate estimate. So in terms of tax rate management, after the passage of Measure M, tax rates went up a little bit, as you can see in 2020. But since then, we've been really mindful about trying to manage that bond program tax rate a little under $100 per $100,000 in assessed value. And this new issuance of bonds will keep the tax rate relatively level at around that $100 target that we are looking at. And by issuing the bonds at this time, the district will be able to avoid fluctuating tax rates. So in the interest rate chart I showed earlier, I mentioned that when we kicked off this financing, the borrowing rates in the municipal market were a little bit lower. We identified possibly two series of bonds where we might be able to refund or refinance, essentially, some of the existing debt to generate taxpayer savings. Unfortunately, as of today, we're not seeing savings on those bonds, but we are asking in that resolution under E for the board to approve that resolution. And as we get closer to pricing, if there is an opportunity, we will work with district staff to determine whether it's worthwhile to pursue that refunding or not. So that's the distinction between item D and item E. Item D is about the new money issuance under Measure S, whereas item E is about the authorizing the refunding bonds. So some good faith estimates. This is a legal requirement to provide some good faith estimates associated with the bond issuance. There are two columns here, one for the new money bonds and one for the refunding bonds. The new money bond true interest cost, that's similar to an average borrowing rate on the bonds. That is coming out to about 4.7%. The refunding bond estimate is a little bit lower at 3.69%, and the difference is because the new money bonds will have a longer repayment term. So in terms of the legal documents, what is being actually adopted under D would be what is listed under 5.D.2, which is the resolution authorizing the sale of the 2012 Series D bonds. It authorizes a par amount of not to exceed $23 million, a maximum repayment term of 30 years, a maximum underwriter's discount of 4.25 per bond, and a maximum true interest cost of 6.0%. The resolution authorizing the sale of refunding bonds will actually be what is listed as 5.E.1, and that also sets a number of parameters. But as it's described in the board memo, we would not proceed unless there is savings of present value savings of at least 3% of the refunded par amount. In addition to the resolution, there are a number of attachments that the district board would be approving in form. And essentially, these documents, you're authorizing district staff to finalize these documents at pricing or at closing. So currently, as they are before you, they have some blanks because they will be filled in at pricing. And the bond issuance schedule, so we are planning to price and close the bonds in April. I think there was a question about the rating. The rating process will happen later this month, although I was going to discuss with district staff about whether it makes any sense to wait if the district board will be coming up with any plans about how to address some of the deficits that we're seeing in the budget at this time. So if there is a change in the rating, a negative outlook or a downgrade, it will increase the interest expense on the bonds just because investors see a higher perceived risk associated with it. All right, so I think that's it for my presentation. I'll pause there to see if there are any questions.
Thank you so much. Questions or comments?
We need motions, Sophia?
Oh, I'm sorry, yes. Motion to approve?
Seconded or firsted? So moved, sorry.
Second.
All right, now questions
Thank
or
you.
comments? Sorry, questions or comments?
No problem.
Yeah, I was gonna say thank you. Also very incredibly complex space in terms of financing and the different parameters that impact us. And I appreciate throughout your presentation how you were mindful of all those different levers that we could push or pull, or that our environment pushes or pulls for us, and now how we kind of dance through that. It's like that game that you dance through or you run through. It's like I know the kids used to do it. And there's all these things that are swinging by you and try to jump on the rope and you're trying to get to the best outcome. Clearly with all that you're doing in terms of waiting and pausing and all those considerations, it's really helpful because I think that does make a difference to what we can get out of these bonds and what our community has to contribute towards them. So I just want to say thank you for all that. It was very clear and I think makes sense, all your recommendations.
Thank you.
Can I ask one question?
Sure.
If you go back to slide 9, so for the refunding bonds, it has the proceeds at 7.3 million.
Oh, here we go. 7.3 million, yes.
And then on the next slide, it has the refunding bonds at 26 million?
Yes.
That's because of the bonds that are coming in addition to that one?
Yeah, so when we kicked off the financing, the refunding of the Series A bonds was generating savings, and that's what we used to run the good faith estimates. We were hoping that that downward trend would continue, and the Series B bonds will also generate savings, but we've actually went in the opposite direction. But that's the difference. The not to exceed par amount allows for the refunding of both the Series A and the Series B bonds, whereas the good faith estimates are just based on, I think it's in a little footnote on the bottom.
Right?
Yeah, okay. Just the Series A bonds. But unfortunately, even the Series A bonds are currently not generating savings.
How quickly things change.
It does, yeah.
Thank you.
All right, Rosie, I think we're ready to vote.
Just let me finish my notes.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Okay, we need to do a roll call for this item. Sophia?
Aye.
Kimberly?
Aye.
Carmen?
Aye.
Lisette? Mary Beth?
Aye.
This item passes 5-0.
4-0. Oh, 5-0, excuse me. And is it D or is it E that we just voted on?
D. And then we do a vote for
I think we need to do a vote for each of them, right?
Yes.
That was the first one.
That's what I'm
so
trying to
that's
get
the same
to.
thing. Yeah, D, and then now we'll do the same thing for E, motion, second, voting.
So moved.
Or I guess we did the motion in the beginning, right, for both of them?
Another motion, please.
Okay, so Kim
So moved.
Are we doing comments or no comments? No? Okay. Sophia?
Aye.
Kimberly?
Aye.
Carmen?
Aye.
Lisette? Mary Beth?
Aye.
This item passes 5-0.
Very good. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you, Makiko. Thank you very much.
All right, next item, 5F, selection of CSBA delegates assembly on ballot for San Mateo County Subregion 5B. Sean.
President Lane, you would be able to explain this better than I, but as always, every year, I think I believe we bring this so that the board can vote on potential applicants or candidates for the delegates assembly. So go ahead.
Yeah, just for context, California School Boards Association has an assembly of delegates that represent the regions across the state of California. We are in Region 5, I think technically 5B, because our region includes San Francisco County and San Mateo County. And so we have, I want to say like something like 5 total, plus a county person representing us on the delegate assembly. I'm a delegate on that assembly. I was elected, I guess, last year, so my term, I have another year. So for the spots that are open, we have 3 candidates. My personal recommendation is they're all fine, and we should vote for them. And anyway, there's only 3 spots and 3 people, so we don't want any open spots. I mean, yeah, unless they're terrible, which they're not.
I move we vote for all 3.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Kimberly. Thank you, Mary Beth. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Those opposed, please say no. This item passes 5-0.
Great. Okay, now the weather's getting exciting. We have our last item, which is also
Well, there
exciting.
is closed session after that too, remember?
Ah, that's right, yes, for open session. Item 5G, approval of engagement agreement with Brookwood Advisors for the purpose of affordable workforce housing for CUSD.
Jesus, you mind if I do this? Or do you want to do it?
You do it.
I love it when. I'm just stepping up here. As everyone knows, or as people who have been paying attention will know, we had Brookwood Advisors come present to us last year. We had a real estate committee. Mary Beth Alexander and Kim Hines served on that real estate committee. There were 3 different firms that applied for the work. Brookwood Advisors was selected by this board. There have been there have been a presentation by Brookwood Advisors to a public meeting, and recently there have been a couple closed session meetings. We have been meeting with the city of Half Moon Bay throughout this time rather regularly to help the city with its housing overlay. This is a time, if you're reading the newspapers, that like Huntington Beach, for example, is like told the state, forget you, and Attorney General Rob Bonta is going to sue them, and now Huntington Beach is going to sue the state. You know, part of the housing overlay, as I understand it from Half Moon Bay, is they approached us and said, are you interested in workforce housing? We said, yes, we are. We're actually engaged with Brookwood Advisors. And so this scope of work basically starts off talking about ongoing development management, conceptual designs, community engagement meetings for district workforce housing planning, courtyard facilities, and reconfiguration of the district office site located at Kelly Avenue, which they deem as North Hatch, since that whole property, Pilarcitos District Office, Hatch Elementary School, is referred to as the Hatch property, and underutilized South Hatch portions of the Hatch campus. And the scope of work would include coordinating with us, coordinating with QKA, our architects, master architects, for allocation of the site for educational uses, including increased parking for Hatch Elementary because of concerns that have been raised there, drop-off requirements for that, also for early childhood education, which we are looking at expanding at South Hatch, and improvements at South Hatch and community engagement. The conceptual design of 18 units of workforce housing to potentially be placed if we were able to secure the funding, find the funding, and have board approval for underutilized property on South Hatch. And that would address the issue that we've talked about, recruiting and retaining staff, particularly staff who can't afford the Bay Area. There would be a conceptual design of 42 units of workforce housing at Kelly Avenue, and that is the district office. and that includes civil, landscape, architectural drawings required for pre-application submittal, which is what we need to do with the city in order to be able to build. And then it talks about alternative funding sources for workforce housing projects. That typically is, as we were speaking earlier, as has been for Jefferson, a combination of bonds and sorry, I just blanked, loans. And then conceptual design of district warehouse facilities so that we could move the warehouse facility and courtyard that are outdated and sort of not of great status, and moving that so that we could build workforce housing for staff. And then the conceptual design at South Hatch, talking about street and site infrastructure to address traffic issues, community outreach meetings, drawings, materials, so that we can explain it to the public in community meetings and present that to a joint study session with the City Council, preparations of surveys showing utilities, easement, boundary, location of existing site features for both district office, AKA Kelly Avenue, and South Hatch sites. And then street and site utility plans for stormwater, sanitary sewer, domestic water, fire lines and irrigation, water stubs for potential non-educational uses, including housing. Of course, very important when you're talking about adding housing to an area, that you're looking at traffic, that you're looking at utilities. Traffic analysis is included there, parking analysis is included there, and it has actually been proposed that we could look at lightening the traffic, again, by looking at increased egress for the Hatch Elementary site and more parking for the Hatch Elementary site, and looking at other traffic, widened sidewalks and traffic mitigation that we could propose to the city. And the scope of work is basically, for the consultants, $250,000, and for the landscape, civil and traffic and architectural engineers, $250,000. And so staff for this at this time recommend approval and ask the board for approval of this. Of course, it would be coming out of a fund that is dedicated for capital funds and for real estate and for facilities, and it could not be used for, that money could not be used for salaries anyway, and I say that because in all transparency, I don't want anybody saying, hey, that's money could be spent on salaries or benefits or et cetera, cuts for the budget. That is not the case. This would come from a fund that is particularly for facilities. And so staff recommends approval.
All right, thank you, Sean. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, questions and comments? Well, I'll start then. Thank you. This is great. It's exciting to be at this stage where we can have a concrete next step moving forward, where we can have some more deep development management, more conceptual designing, and really importantly, community engagement meetings for these items. So Sean, correct me if I'm wrong, because there was a lot up there, which is appropriate for the contract. But I kind of summarize this in my mind as help from Brookwood for those things: development management, conceptual designs, and community engagement meetings for workforce housing, right sizing district office facilities, upgrading the South Hatch open space, and alleviating traffic congestion at the Hatch PLRC district office.
Yeah, I want to make sure that as you say that, we are not just looking at this as a workforce housing strategy. We are working with our architects also to see if we can improve the experience of Hatch Elementary, but it is most certainly driven by a workforce housing, and it is also meant not to improve the experience of district office, but to make space on district office space for ostensibly 40 to 50 units, 42 units to be exact. So we are looking for, in the whole quote unquote Hatch property, whether it be North Hatch or South Hatch, district office, or the underutilized portion of the Hatch Elementary, we are looking for this soup to nuts, a design that brings better value for the school site experience, the early childhood education experience, the drop-off for students, the community with green space, a better place for Project Heal and our community garden, improvements. So it's a soup to nuts plan. It's not just workforce housing.
Right, so the district office piece is really about right sizing, compressing it, so we can have space for all that other stuff.
Well, Jesus is going to give his 2 cents.
Optimizing the space.
Optimizing, yes. Yeah, so optimizing, okay.
I would say that we can't build workforce housing there without moving things, and it is true that we talked earlier, or you spoke earlier in your comments, President Lane, about the little house that was sort of a liability because of it not being used for so long and the construction materials therein. There was some money spent on removal of old toxic materials from that little house. And then it is true that we are very grateful to the company that is charging us a very nominal rate because they will recycle and repurpose the woods from that facility. But once that goes, then that would provide potentially parking or potential space for moving of courtyard or maintenance. And those plans, I don't want to get too far in front of me here, but those plans will come to the public at some point. And then, of course, you know, you have to sort of bring the ideas and get the entitlements before we could even begin to look at a bond or a loan by which you would fund that. But I do want to say for the record and for the public, I think the board understands this, Brookwood Advisors did do this with Jefferson. Jefferson was the first district to run this almost entirely on a bond through the help of Dale Scott, who's someone that I've met and heard present. We just have seen South San Francisco and Ravenswood also pass bonds that contain workforce housing because people are starting to understand this may be the only way that you address the recruitment and retention problem and the cost of living problem that we hear. You know, when we talk about raises or when we talk about benefits and wages, a lot of that is tied to cost of living. If we can reduce cost of living, it is one strategy by which to recruit and retain employees.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for bringing up the point about Jefferson's kind of groundbreaking. And I think once they made this splash in the news headlines across the country, my understanding is a good half dozen other districts in the Bay Area have also followed suit. And so I like to think we're ahead of the curve, but we're really not ahead of the curve on this, which is fine because I think we're, you know, the Bay Area is moving in this direction.
If I could just comment, from where we began with the real estate committee, we were looking at even San Mateo, the community college district has housing programs. We looked at a number of them in the Bay Area, and then we researched and met with a number of different firms. And this was really kind of the most practical and pragmatic that would listen and pay attention to our local coastside community. And I think, again, once they're able to flesh out the details that the public will see, that they're really trying to draw the circle wide and meet the needs of our space and not just be plug and play. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what they come up with.
I just want to take a moment to acknowledge this board for the record and for the public. This is a very forward-thinking, progressive, smart, savvy, pragmatic strategy. It is, you know, a couple of years ago, it would have been considered audacious. Now it is considered, oh, everybody wants some of that. I will say too that it wasn't my idea. My question that I called to the board was, how do you take the liability of our properties and turn them into an asset? And I want to give credit where credit's due, particularly to Ms. Hines and to Ms. Alexander, who were on the real estate committee, for vetting with Mr. Contreras' help and finding Brookwood Advisors, which I think is fantastic. I think they are the cutting edge and doing most of this work, much of this work in the state. I have great respect for their work. They've worked well with our city partners, and the city partners have taken us to the task. I will say that I did hear recently from a PTO leader, they said to me, they called me up and said, Sean, we heard in a city council meeting that you guys are thinking about workforce housing on Hatch Elementary School. And I said, well, wait for it. There's a lot to do. And there's a lot to plan for, but ostensibly what you're approving tonight is the first step in the entitlements by which we could get ready and sow the seeds. I will remark that these properties that we have in the district were named as surplus over 10 years ago, almost 10 years ago. And now we're just getting to the place in the imagination of being able to hire the experts to help us do this. And the window is opening because the state is saying you must provide housing. And so the city of Half Moon Bay is impelled and wants us to win because we help them. So, so I think this is the window. I think this is opportunity. I think this is a great thing. And I really want to praise the board for thinking this way. This isn't my idea. My question was, how do you make it an asset, not a liability? I think this could be really good for our employees, faculty, and classified staff. So again, we would recommend approval of this not to exceed number to keep our contract with Brookwood Advisors open.
That's great. Thank you very much, Sean. And I think that's exactly it. It's where we are today. We are constrained, and for the foreseeable future, will be constrained in terms of our operational budget, particularly as that stays flat or maybe increases slightly compared to housing costs. And that's the elephant in the room in terms of cost of living is housing. Everything else is like peanuts compared to a $3,000-$4,000 a month rent, or even more for mortgage and taxes and such. So I wouldn't have thought that we'd be here probably even a few years ago either, but kind of seeing where the trends are going, where the trends have gone, where the trends are going in terms of those financial aspects. I feel like this is really good, smart move, and it's what we've got to do. So I'm excited.
I will say, Ms. Daniel, that your own district of San Francisco Unified has been trying to do workforce housing for some years, but of course the bureaucracy of the city and county of San Francisco, my fair city, it makes that very challenging. And I want to thank our partners at the city of Half Moon Bay for really trying to work with us on this. I'm not trying to call out San Francisco. I mean, it's just tough in the big city, right? But the city of Half Moon Bay, we got to credit them as partners too. I mean, I think they've been wonderful to work with. Jill Ikas, Mike Noche, Matthew Chittister, John Dowdy. I would be remiss if I did not thank them as partners. And Carmen, I look forward to us being able to house teachers in my fair city where you work also.
All right, any other questions or comments?
I have a question. I might have missed it. I'm just curious. Did we, I mean, I know it's not even important, but I was curious, did we talk about where the district would go?
Oh, let me...
I know that's not important.
No, let me also say, the board, well, it is very important. Rosie's always asking me about this. Lots of people in district office have said, whoa. I will say that, you know, this is about conceptual drawings and entitlements and trying to get there from here, but the district office will be realigned and utilized better without moving. In the past, we had talked about moving district office to other surplus property. Brookwood Advisors has actually started plans by which we move some of our facilities on the existing property and are still able to build around it. So it is actually redesigning district office, not because we want granite tops and marble floors, but because I always said, nobody cares about us in district office. They'd like to see us, you know, working underground, maybe me buried underground. But I kid with love. I will say that no, yes, Ms. Cortez, this is about keeping district office functions where they are because the other plans didn't work out, but moving them slightly so that we could have 42 units of housing on the same footprint.
Well, I think the priority in that district office is that water filter faucet. So whatever you do, you've got to build around that.
We are very pleased and very proud of the water filtration units we've put on all our campuses. I think 1 per 150 students on all our campuses, and we have 1 at district office. And I thank Mr. Contreras for tilting at that windmill in my first year of employ and making sure that we had water filtration units for our students, which turned out really helpful during COVID, I got to say.
Can you speak to the microphone, Lisa? I'm sorry.
I tried, but it takes forever.
It's just that we have...
I'm going to be quiet.
Chismosa.
I'm done.
Chistosa.
I'm done.
Permiso.
No, we just want people that are hearing, watching us on TV be able to hear us.
Yeah, I think she's making a joke about how important our water facility, water cooler talk is.
All right. Any further comments or questions? Okay, Rosie?
Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say no. This item passes 5-0.
Okay, very good. Okay, and that is our last business item. Item 6, future events, March.
Sophia, we move one item from the consent agenda.
Oh, yes, thank you. Oh, Rosie, you're the best. Okay, so the new item 5H, which was the item that 4B, did you say?
4P.
4P, which was the board policy pertaining to facilities. Let me just bring up my notes on that.
Well, vis-a-vis the last item, as I recall, you were thinking about a friendly amendment to the approval of the board policies with direction to staff to make sure that it did not just say teacher housing, but that it said teacher and employee housing.
Just employee, because teachers are
Just employee housing.
Yeah.
And I would consider that a friendly amendment, and I would consider that direction, and we are happy to approve it as you so move it if you get a second and a vote, or we can always bring the policy back at another meeting, as you wish.
Second.
She already said it. Mm-hmm. All right.
Okay.
Any
Do
other
we have?
questions or comments? All right.
Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say no. This item passes 5-0.
Thank you, Rosie. Remembering about that. Okay, so that brings us to item 6, future events, March 17th. Staff development, minimum day for all students, April 3rd to April 7th, spring break, no school. April 13th, our next regular board meeting here at Cunha Intermediate School, multipurpose room, 6:00 p.m. So with that, we will
Convene to close session.
to close session, and then we will come back here to reconvene open session and close the meeting.
And at that time, we will read aloud in a reconvened open session the action of the board in closed session.
Very good. All right. So we need to take a vote to adjourn or no? Okay. All right.
We do it after closed session.
All right. So we'll adjourn.